Perfect.
For clarification, the Humboldt Park Health signing, is that Mr. Sanchez or Ms. Ragusa?
It's both of us, Noah.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Noah, do you need to check on anything else or should I get started?
Ready when you are. We're good to go.
Perfect. Good morning, everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order at 10 a.m. As many of you know, the governor has recently signed Public Act 101-0640, making certain amendments to the Open Meetings Act so that we, along with other boards and commissions, can continue to host virtual meetings during this COVID-19 public health emergency, provided that certain conditions are met. One of those conditions is that I, as head of the Chicago Plan Commission, determined that an in-person meeting of the Chicago Plan Commission is not practical nor prudent. I want to make sure our virtual meetings meets all the conditions of the Open Meetings Act as amended. Therefore, I am making a determination pursuant to the newly created Section 7E2 of the Open Meetings Act that an in-person meeting of the Chicago Plan Commission is not practical nor prudent. Similarly, I am also making a determination pursuant to the newly created Section 7E5 that because of the disaster as declared by the governor, it is unfeasible for at least one member of the Chicago Plan Commission or its chief administrative officer or its chief legal officer to be physically present at the meeting place. Before we get into the full meeting agenda for the March 17, 2022 Chicago Plan Commission meeting, I would like to ask everyone that because we are meeting virtually, please be mindful of your surroundings in terms of noise. Please remember to keep yourself muted when you're not speaking. The meeting is being recorded and also live streamed for public viewing. Lastly, if you are an active participant in the meeting, especially if you're speaking, please do not watch the live stream as this will cause audio interference. Thank you. I want to also quickly provide guidance to those who have pre-registered to provide testimony on the cases presented for public hearing today. Those who requested to testify at the Plan Commission today should have already submitted testimony forms, which included the speaker's full name and an address, as well as the public hearing item number, and those forms have been gathered by the staff. I would also like to remind our presenters to please be mindful of the presentation length and to please stay on point in a concise and efficient manner so as to respect the time of all in attendance. Out of respect for others, speakers should please limit your comments to 3 minutes. When your name is called, your microphone will be unmuted to allow you to make your comments. Please attempt to refrain from repeating comments that have already been made by previous speakers. The public comment portion of the meeting is not a question and answer session of staff or the applicant, but an opportunity for attendees to voice their opinions on a particular proposal. Out of respect for others, please do not interrupt or disrupt the speakers. Any individual who disrupts the presentation or any subsequent comment session may be muted or removed from the virtual hearing session. We will now call roll. Commissioner Barclay.
Present.
Commissioner Biaggi.
Here.
Commissioner Brentfield.
Here.
Commissioner Burnett. Not here. Commissioner Cox.
Here.
Commissioner Escareño. Not here. Commissioner Flores here. Commissioner Garza.
Here.
Commissioner Lightfoot. Commissioner Lyons.
Here.
Commissioner Moore.
Here.
Commissioner Murphy. Not here. Commissioner Novara. Not here. Commissioner Osterman. Not here. Commissioner Pineda,
Here.
Commissioner Reyes,
Here.
Commissioner Searle,
Here.
Commissioner Esposito. Not here. Commissioner Tunney,
Here.
Commissioner Villegas. Not here. And Commissioner Wagensbaum.
Here.
Commissioner Burnett is here.
Thank you. We will now approve the minutes for the February 17, 2022 regularly scheduled Plan Commission meeting. The minutes were distributed prior to today's hearing. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the regularly scheduled meeting of the Chicago Plan Commission held on February 17, 2022?
So moved, Biagi.
Second, Garza.
Motion by Biagi, second by Garza. Thank you. I will now call roll on that. Commissioner Barclay,
Yes.
Commissioner Biagi,
Here. Yes. Sorry.
Commissioner Brentfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Burnett,
Yes.
Commissioner Cox,
Yes.
Commissioner Flores is a yes, Commissioner Garza,
Yes.
Commissioner Lyons,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy. Don't think he's here yet. Commissioner Novara, Commissioner Osterman, Commissioner Pineda,
Yes.
Commissioner Reyes,
Yes.
Commissioner Searle,
Yes.
Commissioner Esposito, Commissioner Tunney,
Yes.
Commissioner Villegas, and Commissioner Wagensbaum.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Prior to commencing the public testimony and regular business listed on the agenda, we have one item for which we are seeking a deferral. A resolution recommending a proposed ordinance authorizing a disposition of the city-owned land generally located at 6435 North California Avenue to Yakad Livenu, and this is in the 50th Ward. Can I get a motion to defer this item to a future Plan Commission meeting?
So moved by Tony.
I did not get the first motion.
So moved by Tony.
Motion by Tunney, seconded by Lyons. Roll call vote. Commissioner Barclay,
Yes.
Commissioner Biagi,
Yes.
Commissioner Brentfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Burnett,
Yes.
Commissioner Cox,
Yes.
Commissioner Flores, yes. Commissioner Garza,
Yes.
Commissioner Lyons,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Pineda,
Yes.
Commissioner Reyes,
Yes.
Commissioner Searle,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunney,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wagensbaum.
Yes.
Perfect, motion passes. Now we will go to public testimony portion for the items remaining on the agenda today. I have 5 submitted forms for people who have signed up to speak on items today. When I call your name, please wait a moment until you're unmuted and then you may proceed to speak. Please be reminded that you will have 3 minutes to speak. Please note 2 speakers sign in to speak on the item that we just referred. You are welcome to make your comments today or hold them to a future meeting when this item will be presented. The first is Hugh Dublin to speak about an omnibus item at 6435 North California. The second is Michael O'Connor, also to speak about this item. Then third is Butler Adams to speak on item D3 at 1353 West Fulton, followed again by Butler Adams again for item D4 at 360 North Green. And then lastly, Butler Adams again, this time for item D5, the neighborhood design guidelines. That concludes the list of those who have completed speaking forms. Are there any other members of the public who wish to make public comments at this time? Please raise your hand in the Zoom window and we will call your name in the order they appear.
Sorry, Chairwoman. Then we go back to the beginning of the list. So now we call Mr. Devlin.
Okay. So, Mr. Devlin, are you ready to speak?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. May I be allowed to share my screen, please?
Unfortunately, Hugh, that's not permitted in these meetings. It's just a comment section, 3 minutes.
Okay, thanks. I want to talk about the process of disposing of the Northtown Library, and I have just a very few comments. I want to thank the commission for a deferral. I think that's best. My concerns with this item are in the areas of notice and transparency, and in particular, two areas of transparency with respect to the availability of the opportunity, and transparency with respect to the identity of the applicant. There's a history of interest in our neighborhood in this facility ever since we got our new library, and there's been occasional contact with the alderman and with DPD, and we haven't gotten any response back. So everyone I know was pretty surprised Monday, February 28th, when the alderman announced the new owners. Looking into it, we found out that a couple of days earlier, on February 26th, the invitation for proposals went out. And looking into it a little further, a few days before that, DPD added this particular buyer to the commission agenda. So the DPD was proposing city action via the Plan Commission during the invitation for proposal period extends till March 31st. The Plan Commission agenda called out Yahad/Libnu. And the alderman explained that Yahad, Chicago, is the new owner, and Libnu is intended as a lessee, a tenant. Well, but this doesn't make any sense because Yahad Chicago program of a New York City-based religious not-for-profit, they can't own real estate in Illinois. And this odd coincidence of the Plan Commission agenda and the alderman getting the identifying the new owner incorrectly, I don't know, it seems almost like collaboration. The other thing that surprised us was the sale price. In May 2019, a appraisal was commissioned by Fleet Management Facilities, came out at $750,000, $750,000. In March 21st, on March 21, the planning DPD an appraisal that they commissioned came to $630,000. Yet the item on the agenda today is DPD entertaining
Mr.
an
Devlin,
offer
if you could wrap up your comment.
of $400,000. So my questions for DPD, just wrapping up, we in the public don't know who the applicant is here. And I feel that the public has the right to know who the applicant is. I'm old enough to remember Chicago before economic disclosure statements. And I feel that these economic disclosures belong to the public. And
Thank you for your comment,
another
Mr.
question
Devlin. If we could go to Mr. Michael O'Connor next.
Woman, I don't see the name Michael O'Connor. There is a unknown phone number. I don't know if that's him. Michael
Believe
O'Connor,
that-
if you are calling from the number, you can press *6 to unmute. Chairwoman, I don't think he's here.
No, okay. Then we can go on to Mr. Butler Adams on item D3.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my name is Butler Adams, and I'm right now speaking on the project at 1353 West Fulton. As an urbanist, I'm aware of the evolution of the in awe of the evolution of, in the West Loop and Fulton Market area. The area has a mix of century-old industrial buildings that have been converted to residential and commercial space, along with a crop of new high-rises being built. We're basically watching a section of the city being born. Now, regarding the project at 1353 West Fulton, I am in support of the height and density. In reference to the architecture, I am a bit mixed. I am not at all a fan of the altered base from previous renditions of this project. The corner now seems monolithic and sterile. I feel the previous iteration of the base was far superior than this grievous edit. I did attend the October 18th, 2021 public Zoom meeting, and my concern at that time was the randomness of the balconies on the facade. Usually, visually, to me, they seem to have no place or purpose, kind of meaningless skin tags. So I do hope that there's a continued dialogue regarding the true design excellence and whether adhering to quote unquote guidelines is helpful or a hindrance. And in this particular project, I kind of see it as a hindrance. Looking at the before and after images of this base on the page called Project Changes Based on Feedback, I don't see how anyone could possibly think this updated version is visually better than what was proposed before. Now, one thing I was always hoping were for some kind of linear units along the base to have some kind of visual active space, but now you have this kind of solid brick base on that corner that adds absolutely nothing. And it says it's based on feedback. Okay, you reduce 2 levels of parking, that's awesome. But this hardcore brick and trying to relate to the West Loop guidelines, give me a break. This is awful. And if you all look at this too, I mean, I think a lot of you all, especially in the architecture world, will kind of agree with me that this is really not a better version of what we could have. So I'm loving the explosion and expansion in the West Loop, but I really, really do hope that we can focus a bit more on the architecture. And we don't necessarily have to always adhere to the guidelines, because in this case, I think adhering to guidelines is a step in the wrong direction. Otherwise, I do support this project. I hope there, again, is some continued dialogue regarding the design. And can we just continue to update these neighborhood guidelines, because people seem to get really attached to them for no reason, and they should be living, breathing, and forever changing documents. Thank you.
You want to continue to item D4?
Okay, yes. So D4 is for 360 North Green. So I do write this letter in support of the development at 360 North Green. I was previously in favor of this project when it was approved. I believe that was back March 15th of 2018 Plan Commission. So I supported the project then. I support it now as well. Since initially being approved, this project has been redesigned to include a taller tower with smaller floor plates. Offices that they're seeking don't need the amount of floor space per floor that they had before. Additional changes include a reduction of parking from 256 spaces on 4 levels to 90 spaces on 2 levels. This is always a bonus. We can reduce parking, especially for an office building near public transit. And the height of the building has increased from a previously approved 298 feet. And this proposal, I believe, is at 399 feet. One of the shortcomings that I see with this project is the execution of the parking garage. We have a tower parked on top of a plinth. And to me, the visual transition is somewhat clunky. Below, I did include some images in what I submitted, and the images are of the contemporary a condo building at Grandin Wells, and it shows how a parking garage and tower can fit seamlessly without hiding function. So I do think that there should be some work on the parking garage of this building. Otherwise, I do feel that it is a fairly nice update. Give me 1 second. I had a few other things that I had written down. Well, one thing I just noticed, and this is regarding Sterling Bay, not necessarily this project, but when it was approved several years ago, there were 3 projects approved, including, I think one was like 333 North Green, and all these documents for Sterling Bay. That one is really not highlighted, so maybe they're working on some plans to redesign that one as well, because I know they're looking at some additional land next door. But I'm hopefully looking for a signature tower in the West Loop Fulton Market area, and hopefully they can pull it off. But again, regarding this project at 360 North Green, this proposal is better architecturally, and I think better for the skyline than the previous kind of boxy, clunky iteration. So again, I do hope the Plan Commission supports this project at 360 North Green. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. And then lastly, you are signed up to speak for item D5.
Okay, for D5, this is just in terms of neighborhood guidelines and stuff like that, design guidelines. I did see some of the bullet points talking about TOD infill. I do wish there are plans. I wish plans could be created for the densification along the green line and red line and this on the south side. Those I think are being underutilized. There's a project going on right now at the 43rd Street Green Line that's going to add nearly 200 units. A lot of that's going to be affordable housing, and there's so many stations along the Green Line that are empty, have a lot of vacant land around them. And I certainly like to see what's happening at 43rd Street and the Green Line happening at a lot of these other stations along the Green Line and Red Line. I think it's right now a total underutilization of the land. I think that we shouldn't only be focusing on CTA, but Metro Electric as well, because Metro Electric kind of seems to be the bastard stepchild of public transportation and gets no real attention, and densifying around those lines, I think, would also help. We always talk about equity and affordability, but we really don't talk about inequity in terms of access to the public transportation. So that's one reason why I'm talking about really densifying around public transportation. In the category 5, you talk, there's a discussion about massing. And one thing I would like to do in terms of massing can be, because as stated, people always complain about height when it comes to these new projects. I do hope that we can also harken back to the history of these neighborhoods that at one time these neighborhoods offered. We talk about contextualizing all the time. Well, if right now you only have 3 or 4 story buildings, but at one time you had 8 to 10 story buildings, what part is actually contextual? I'm talking about like my neighborhood Woodlawn. At one time in Woodlawn, we had 8 to 10 story buildings, and all along 63rd right now, there's discussion about building a more dense and affordable housing. So are we talking 5 stories, 4 stories, or 8 or 9 stories? I think if we also harken back to history and let people know what was there, they won't be so afraid as to what's possibly coming in the neighborhood. So the historical context. I do wish that more density bonuses could be allowed in these neighborhood projects. If they want to buy additional FAR, they should be able to. Personally, I think the city of Chicago needs to be rezoned as a whole. I think that we should have more dense as of right projects than is allowed right now. I know the city was rezoned about 20 years ago, but I think that Chicago is underzoned. Lastly, that I can really think of right now is we have some projects in Chicago, including Woodlawn Station and this project in Pilsen. Let's really up this game in Pilsen. You're right next to the Metro Electric, and having only 280 potential units on 7.2 acres is not enough when we're having proposed 800 units for Woodlawn Station. Last thing real quick, happy birthday to Mr. Blakemore. I heard he turned 80, but please don't learn how to use Zoom. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. I believe we have one more speaker. I see Mondera.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi, my name is Dennis Mondero. I'm the executive director of Chinese Mutual Aid Association, a nonprofit in Chicago. We've been around for 40 years helping immigrants and refugees. Our office started in Uptown on Argyle Street, first helping Chinese and Vietnamese refugees after the fall of Saigon. I'm actually here to just ask about 6435 North California. Since I understand that there's a deferral of the Plan Commission's deliberation today, I'm wondering if also there might be a delay in the deadline for the invitation for proposal from March 31st. And if so, when would that changed deadline go to? Thank you.
Noah, is there somebody on staff that can answer that?
Yeah,
Just to
I can
clarify?
handle that one. Yes. There is no change in the request for proposals. That was published with a set expectation date. So all the alternative proposals that need to be submitted will need to meet that deadline that was published.
Thank you. And I see Commissioner Burnett wants to say.
Yeah, I think that we need to consider what's his name for the Plan Commission or to work for the Planning Department. That's all. Mr. Butler, thank you.
Mr. Adams, yes.
Mr. Adams, yeah.
I don't see any more speakers. Can you confirm that, tech support?
There are no more hands raised.
Okay, thank you. Next in the agenda are matters submitted in accordance with the Interagency Planning Referral Act. Do I have a motion to approve item number 2 under the disposition heading, mentioning once more as a reminder that item 1 under the disposition heading has been deferred? Do I have a motion?
So move, Biagi.
Motion by
Seconded by
Biagi,
Searle.
seconded by Searle. I will now call a roll vote. Commissioner Barclay,
Yes.
Commissioner Biagi,
Yes.
Commissioner Brentfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Burnett,
Yes,
Commissioner Cox,
Yes.
Commissioner Flores is a yes. Commissioner Garza,
Yes.
Commissioner Lyons,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Piñero,
Yes.
Commissioner Reyes,
Yes.
Commissioner Searle,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunney,
Yes.
Commissioner Wagensbach.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Commissioner Navarro is here as well.
Thank you, Commissioner. Now we will move on to the public hearing presentation portion for matters submitted in accordance with the Lake Michigan and Chicago Lakefront Protection Ordinance and the Chicago zoning ordinance. The first item on the agenda is D1, a proposed residential plan development submitted by Bellray Limited Partnership for the property generally located at 3150 North Racine Avenue. The applicant proposes to change the zoning from M1-2 to B2-3 and then to a residential plan development. The applicant is proposing to renovate the existing 70-unit single-room occupancy building and construct an addition to provide a total of 81 single-room occupancy units and 5 dwelling units. There will be no off-street parking spaces. The maximum building height of the building will be 47 feet, 3 inches, and this is located in the 32nd Ward. Michael Berkshire will provide the context overview and the applicant will present their proposal.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Michael Berkshire with the Department of Planning and Development. The applicants, Bellray Limited Partnership, are here today to request approval of a residential plan development to permit the existing 70-unit single-room occupancy building and construct an addition to provide a total of 81 single-room occupancy units and 5 dwelling units. The property is located at 3150 North Racine Avenue. The site is located in the Lakeview community area where the total population is a little over 100,000. The average household size in Lakeview is 1.8 individuals. 77.6% of the population is white, 8.6% is Hispanic or Latino, and 6.9% is Asian. The project is located on the southwest corner of Belmont and Racine. It is considered a transit served location because of its proximity to the Belmont Avenue CTA station, and Belmont is designated as a pedestrian street or P Street. The land use along Belmont is predominantly commercial. This slide illustrates the land use context. The site is surrounded by property zone B3-3, C1-1, B3-2, and RT4. And here are a series of photographs showing the existing single room occupancy building and the parking lot to the west of the building where the addition will be constructed. Now I will pass it off to Mr. Steve Friedland with Applegate and Thorne Thompson to go over a few details of the proposed amendment.
Thank you, Michael. My name is Steve Friedland. I'm an attorney with Applegate and Thorne Thompson, here on behalf of Bel-Ray Limited Partnership, the applicant for the proposed rezoning. Also on the call from our team are Mark Angelini, who's the president of Mercy Housing Lakefront, Edgar Flagg, who's the regional director of real estate for Mercy Housing, and from our architecture team from Landon Bone Baker, we have Jack Schroeder and Bria Page. Bel-Ray Limited Partnership is wholly owned and controlled by Mercy Housing. Mercy Housing is a not-for-profit provider of affordable housing and one of the nation's largest affordable housing organizations. Mercy has deep roots in Chicago through one of its predecessor organizations, Lakefront SRO, and Lakefront SRO was really one of the pioneers in Chicago of developing affordable housing, particularly tax credit affordable housing. As Michael said, the picture that you see here is what we are proposing. Mercy wants to renovate the existing Bel-Ray Apartments, which is a 70-unit SRO building, and that is the portion of the building, the half of the building that is to the east along Racine Avenue. The renovated building will be 100% affordable, and it will provide housing to individuals who are experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. Michael, you can go to the next slide. So this shows, again, the proposed building and also what you see right now, the existing building. To give you some context, Mercy acquired Bel-Ray Apartments in 1996, and for the past 25 years has provided safe, affordable housing to the single room occupancy residents of Bel-Ray. The existing 12,500 square foot parcel has half of the lot currently improved with that 4-story building that you see at the corner, and the other half of the lot is a surface parking lot. The proposal is to build a companion building to the existing building, as you can see on your screen, to allow for the expansion of the housing on the site. You can go to the next slide, Michael. Yeah. So I think many of you know the development of affordable housing is a long process, and this project is no exception. It was really conceived over 4 years ago, and we're excited through the hopeful adoption of this plan development. The project will now about to be realized. We have worked closely with Alderman Wagasback and the local community on this site. What you see on the screen is the presentation that we made to the South Lakeview Neighbors Association in February 2019. We received very positive feedback from that. There was a vote taken at that meeting in favor of the project. We continued to work with the zoning department, Alderman Wagasback, and Alderman Tunney, because Alderman Tunney's ward is directly across the street from this site, to help bring the property to fruition. Both Alderman Wagasback and Alderman Tunney and the department, and I would especially want to call out Zoning Administrator Murphy, Noah Safranek, and Michael Berkshire, and being helpful with us to work through some of the intricacies of the zoning ordinance that really had to be worked through to make this project work. let's go to the next slide. I'm going to turn it over now to Jack Schroeder to sort of talk through our design issues and then the interior of the building and what we're proposing. Jack, are you on?
Yes. Hi, Jack Schroeder, Land and Bone Baker Architects. Thanks for hosting us today. This is kind of a funny slide to start with. It's just fitting into the format. This is us studying what we're going to do with this addition as it relates to material, scale, and proportion. We have this beautiful building on the corner. It's not a landmark, but it is a really beautiful old Chicago building. Great stonework, an interesting brick color, the clay tile, kind of faux mansard. So we knew we wanted to meet the building and be respectful, but still do a kind of modern addition. So you can probably go to the next slide. Yeah. So you can see our existing building there. And we wanted to sort of continue the scale along the block. It also works kind of functionally within the building. And the surrounding neighborhood definitely supports this scale, if not more. So that's what kind of set our height. And again, we're working with similar materials, but bringing them into kind of a modern feel. We've got a whole storefront along Belmont for the new addition, and we've opened what used to be units behind those old storefronts in the existing building. So we're trying to be a more kind of outward facing development as compared to what it is today. At the bottom here, to the east, you can see the exit arrow splitting the new and the existing. At the first floor, like I said, we eliminated units that were kind of along the noisy streets and have drastically expanded amenity space and types of amenities, and even just loosened up the plan so that there's kind of the odd space to lounge and meet. And then there's a large space at the new storefront that Mercy Housing is sort of working to either have some sort of internal part of their organization be a part of, or possibly go outside and partner with someone else. Not much impact on the site. These sidewalks exist. We've got ADA accessibility throughout. There's a bus stop there on Belmont. We are adding some bike parking, but most of what we're doing here is using this old infrastructure and just improving on it. The entry is at the same location, kind of tucked back in on Racine, the residential entry. We chose to keep it there. That works. It's got a little bit of privacy. It's got a controlled kind of main entry point. It's the elevator lobby and kind of shared space. And we were able to, this is a smaller thing, but we're able to expand service space as well and pull the trash inside. There was some complaint in the community meeting of the bins just sitting in the alley due to the existing conditions. So doing the expansion has also helped us improve a lot of the service and maintenance in the building as well. This is the second floor. The blue or teal here is the existing units. These are all getting 100% rehabbed, brought up to accessible standards as possible. We've added this other lounge space. We'll improve all the hallways. And then the orange color is the new units, which are brought up to fully modern standards and full accessibility. Kept the plan tied together, added an elevator. I think this works really well. And there's a interior court for light and vent. And it's a tight site. We acknowledge that, but we did want to kind of maximize what we could get for units to serve. Like Steve said, people dealing with homelessness are on the edge of that. And then at the next floor, we've integrated some one-bedroom units into the new portion of the building. Kind of unusual for this type of development, but Mercy's always willing to kind of try some different things and see if this mix can even be more successful than some others. So just a roof plan. You're seeing the kind of I shape courtyards at either side, holding down the 2 street fronts, just as an urban move. Keep going. Here's our elevation. A lot of the same talking points as the 3D images, but I think this even gives you a little more sense of the detail of the existing building and how beautiful it is. And you can see how we try to work with some of the horizontal banding. We're really trying to mimic the proportion of the windows and the scale of those. And we're integrating some, glazed brick, doing the sort of modern streamlined version of some of the stonework. So again, the word I always come back to is respectful, but still modern, and a cool and interesting sort of addition to the block. This is the existing facade. We'll just be restoring this, doing masonry work, new windows, and any other sort of cleaning up and maintenance that needs to happen on these facades. Likewise, the back, not much here. Just service doors and access to the alley. This is our west side, generally, facing a condo development. So again, not really street facing, but generous openings. Definitely want to get the feel right for these kind of smaller spaces. Just a quick, construction type study. The existing building is old school, 3Y brick masonry bearing, wood frame inside, and then we're going to a light gauge frame for the new building. And we do have a small cantilever at the front facade down at grade, just to kind of again set this building away, let that old building kind of stand a little bit proud of it, but maintain this nice storefront along Belmont. I think I hit most of these points. Again, the infrastructure is solid here. We've got bus stops, all of our hydrants are where they need to be. So really we're just kind of probably do some spot repair and add some bike racks at the site, but CDOT is on board with that. Pedestrian oriented, again, not to be repetitive, but we're maintaining the existing sidewalks, trees, bus stops, bike parking. We are actually eliminating the existing driveway or curb cut on Belmont as we're eliminating that underused parking site to the west. Obviously, we're paying great attention to kind of reopening our facade to the commercial side to Belmont, both in the existing building and in our new addition. And development has no blank facing public walls. Obviously, we have the great historic facade at 2 sides, and then we think we're really kind of opening up in the addition as well. Yes, and just some material touch showing the existing clay tile. We're going to pick up with some glazed green brick. Try to match as closely as we can the kind of tan yellow of the existing brick, and also doing our own touch on the sort of stone detailing, and then aluminum storefront along the base at both buildings. We are shooting for enterprise green communities to reach the 80-point level, and then we want to exceed energy code to reach the other 20 points. And we established that a while ago.
Thanks. Thanks, Jack. I'll take it back now. So as I noted, the project is 100% affordable. Here is our unit mix. And as you can see, a significant majority of our 86 units, 70 of them, will be occupied by residents whose income doesn't exceed 30% of area median income. The remaining 16 units will serve residents at 50% or 60% AMI. I would note that this is a great example of how affordable housing can, be accepted by the community. I think this might be a difficult project to do if it was on a piece of vacant land, but with the track record that Mercy had, in the existing building, we really heard nothing but good things from the community when we met with them, and shows that, you know, you can do affordable housing in a neighborhood like this and, you know, really not have an impact on anyone, and have a wonderful impact on affordability. Next slide. Yeah. So significant public benefits for this project. You know, obviously, as I just noted, it's going to offer housing to very low-income residents of the Lakeview community. There will be significant investment through the construction, 100 estimated construction jobs and about 7 permanent jobs. We're eliminating that driveway on Belmont, and by bringing the building out to the sidewalk, we're really sort of helping create a more pedestrian-friendly Belmont. In addition, the development team is planning to exceed the city goals for MBE and WBE, and will, you know, achieve the 50% participation from Chicago residents. So, you know, we are committing to that. With that, we don't have anything further, but would certainly be willing to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Steve. Again, for the record, Michael Berkshire from DPD. The Department of Planning and Development has reviewed the project materials submitted by the applicant and has concluded that the proposed zoning map amendment would be appropriate for the reasons listed on this slide. Please refer to the staff report for further details regarding this project and the plans identified here today. Based on the foregoing, it is the recommendation of the zoning administrator of the Department of Planning and Development that this application to rezone the site from M1-2 to B2-3 and then to a residential plan development be approved and forwarded to the City Council Committee on Zoning, Landmarks, and Building Standards. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I see that we have a few commissioners wanting to comment on this item. We can start with Commissioner Tunney.
Thank you, Chairwoman. And I want to commend Alderman Wagasback for this expansion of affordable housing. And I have a few comments about it. First, for the architect team, the existing building, the new glazing on the existing building, is that on the Belmont front? Because it is pretty not user-friendly on the existing building.
Yeah, we're removing all of that, Alderman, and going in with actual transparent, you know, kind
on
of
the Belmont side.
Yeah. So currently there's units behind those kind of cut up pieces of glazing. So the units are no longer there, and we're opening those up to more public functions and amenities there.
All right. And while you have this screen up, I think and I want to talk to Alderman Wagasback about this and to the team, but there is a variable message board on this intersection. And I'm sure the Alderman is not in favor of it, because if my memory serves me correct, we changed some of our ordinances to restrict this kind of variable message board. So I would hope that with this investment that we get rid of that sign, because it is a hazard, in my opinion.
That would be Mark or Edgar, possibly. Sorry.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this previously, Alderman, and at the moment, I don't believe we had a thought of removing it. And I think we've discussed that with staff before, but Mark or Edgar, if you want to speak to it.
Yeah, no, I mean, certainly open to revisiting that. And I don't disagree, frankly, with Alderman Tunney's comment. I don't know if the income generated from that is critical to the building's operation, but we'll certainly look into it. And if we can do it, and if we can figure out a way to supplement that income otherwise, I don't disagree. I think that really does not add to the value and the beauty of the building.
Right, especially because we're enhancing it, and I like the addition quite well.
Chairwoman, if you want, I can answer that too. Alderman.
I'll defer to Alderman Wagasback.
Yeah, I think this is Alderman Wagasback. Just to give a quick answer to that, we have been removing those types of signs from buildings where it affects the quality of life of different neighbors. This one, I think, went up in 2012 or 13, and originally they had asked for it as to supplement some of the income for the building, to offset just a little bit. But I'm not sure those are generating the type of revenue that they used to. So that's something I'd be in favor of too, but can speak to Mercy Housing about it more in detail.
Well, Chairman Wagisbeck, if it passes out of Plan Commission, guess what committee it's going to come to?
Yeah,
All right.
I agree. And that's why I think, when you're looking at across the street there, I know you'll have some stuff going up, and you've got residents to the north there that have to look at it as well. So that's something to keep in mind.
Well, 3/4 of that intersection is the 44th Ward. So those are the people that are basically looking at it. So
yeah, that's what I mean. The east side there have to look directly at it on your side.
The other, could the team explain to me, this is a multi-million-dollar investment renovation, why the unit count only is going up, what is it, 14, maybe 15 units? It seems to me, since we're doubling the size of this building, that we would secure more units. So from somebody on the team tell me, I know you're putting some office space on the first floor and such, but I just think it's a great project, but I'm surprised that we're only adding a smaller number of units. Mm-hmm.
I'll take.
Go ahead, Steve.
I'll start to take a stab at that, and Mark, you can jump in. Some of it does have to do with underlying zoning issues and the number of units that are permitted on this lot. This is a very small parcel of 12,505 square feet. A lot of it really did have to do with the programmatic aspects of it, which we were taking units out of that first floor. And I think the third issue is sort of what is financeable through tax credits. It just, there's sort of a sweet spot with the number of units that usually work in these projects. So it was a little bit of a give and take of all of those things, though I will say I'm sure that Mercy would have preferred 93 or 94 instead of 86, but that was where the proposal came out. Mark, I don't know if you want to add to that.
So the only thing I would add too is that we're also adding here some one-bedroom units, which obviously reduces the number of total units possible. And that's recognizing and working in partnership with CHA that there are individuals with young families that are at risk of homelessness and need the kind of servicing or service provision that comes with permanent supportive housing. Edgar, do you have anything else you want to add? Edgar Flagg is our Director of Real Estate Development.
Yes, hi. Yeah, a lot of it goes to the programming that would be allowed from the size of the lot. Even if we wanted to add more units, the zoning wouldn't allow for us to do that. And we have one-bedroom units as a function of serving the need, but also serving the ability to secure subsidy vouchers, which we feel is critical for our permanent supportive housing units. And it's just very difficult, if not impossible, to achieve subsidy vouchers for studio units anymore.
Okay, enough said. The last comment is more of a comment to Mr. Friedland. Mr. Friedland, if I remember your comments, I wrote them down about a couple of things that this is maybe a difficult area to, if it was a vacant piece of property, we might have a bigger problem with affordability in Lakeview. I take insult to that comment. Lakeview is open for affordability, and we've been working with the Bel-Ray community for many years. So when you said that, it kind of bothered me because we've been working to try to find more affordability. And it seems to me that I'd like to do more projects like this. And then the other comment you said, Mr. Friedland, was that it didn't have much of an impact on the community, except that affordability for the people that were living there. We want affordable housing in Lakeview. So it's valuable for everybody, not just the residents there, but for the diversity of housing available in Lakeview. So that's just my comment about it. Maybe Alderman Wagsback might want to say a few more words.
Could I respond?
I was basically kind of insulted.
Okay, could I respond to that, Alderman? Because the clarification I would make is I certainly was not talking about city leadership. I think that the city of Chicago and certainly you and other aldermen very much are advocates of affordable housing. As someone who does this with my clients, I will just say that, you know, when you go into projects with affordable housing, we often hear from people, not leadership, but people who are living in these communities that, you know, have concerns. And I just find that when you have a track record like Mercy has at this project, people realize that this housing is no different than any other housing, and it does provide a great benefit to the community. So I apologize if you took that as a comment to you or your leadership. That's not at all what I meant.
Apology taken, but I think my point is important for every community. And that's what we're trying to do citywide, is to make sure it's in every community. So thank you.
Yeah, and also, Alderman, we are in every community. We're north side, west side, south side. So certainly we share your point of view here on the importance and value of affordable housing, and that everybody, irrespective of their income, deserves to live in a place of dignity and to become an engaged part of their community.
Thank you. I think we'll go on to the next speaker. I see Commissioner Searle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions. First of all, compliments to the addition and the combination of different types of units in this building. I think that makes a lot of sense and will serve the community even better than it may have before. I was curious about the original building. This is an architectural question, of course, that it has, that it looked like it has divided lights at the lower level instead of the storefront. And I wondered why the decision was made, maybe not to carry that on through again. Maybe I'm wrong about how those, I know those windows are configured so that, you know, they're not transparent in the old building. But I was just curious about why they only are, you know, one large pane of glass rather than say 3 or 4.
Yeah, our impression, so those were from a rehab in the 90s. They're not historic, they're not kind of leaded windows or anything in there. So I think our goal was just to really open it up and also have another thing that can kind of blend through the whole development. Again, those opaque pieces that you see are for privacy because those were units along there and had sound issues and toughest to rent as far as I understand. So I guess we didn't see that as a identifiable or historic thing to carry through, but you know, we could revisit it. But yeah, I think we just like the idea of this kind of clean.
If they weren't historic to begin with, that makes more sense. But
no, they're the sort of forest green aluminum storefront.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other question I was wondering about is, you know, the windows at the lower level of the new building are shorter. Is that because of the different kind of structure that it takes to, are the floor levels aligned so that you're walking from one side of the building to the other?
You read it exactly.
Okay.
So that, you know, it's stick framing on the existing building, so the floors can get really skinny. We can prove that structurally, but now we're doing a truss. So to meet the floors, there's a little bit more depth there. So yeah, good eye. we tried, to try to thin that down, and that's why we also broke it between the two. We do have that kind of glazed piece.
The break is good.
Yeah.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Commissioner Burnett.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I just want to commend the Alderman, Mercy Housing. I'd like to commend the residents from both wards for accepting an addition to this development. It's unique to see. I haven't seen a building like this extended, right? So I think and maybe they've been before, but it's my first time seeing a building like this having an addition to it. So I think they did a great job. Mercy Housing is a great organization. They have a building in my ward on the near north side, over on Clybourne and Division, a Howman Young design building. It fits very well in the community. It's a very diverse community. There are no complaints. They're a great organization and they do a great job. I just wanted to ask Alderman Wagaspack or the developer, did any of your ARO money go toward this?
So I don't believe so. I'm Mark or Edgar. Can you speak to the capital?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think.
I think Mark. Yeah.
Because this would have been a good way to fulfill some ARO requirements. You know, I guess you don't need to do that, but this would have been great. But I think this is great. You know, and I know a lot of us do affordable, but a lot of us don't have the opportunities to do that low of affordable, which is sorely needed in the city of Chicago. So I commend everybody and the mayor's office and also the Department of Planning on the great work on this. Congratulations.
Thank you. Next, we have Commissioner Novara.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and congrats on your new role. I do just want to acknowledge this project and Mercy and Alderman Wagaspack. I just want to say from my perspective how important it is that not only is the provision of very low income units being continued here, but actually expanded is just such a huge need. When we look at Chicago's low income population, just to give some context, nearly 70% of the low income renter population in Chicago are people making less than 30% of the area median income. That's about $20,000 for a single person. So the vast majority of the population we would consider low income renters are at the very low end of the low income spectrum. And it's the hardest group for us to serve because you need the biggest subsidy to make those rents affordable. So I just can't stress enough how important it is that these units exist, that they're continuing, that they're being expanded, and that they're serving such a range, working with the continuum to serve people experiencing homelessness all the way to CHA waitlist, et cetera. So really just delighted for this project and thank you to everyone for your work on it and the sustainability feature of this too, that we're keeping a building and making it work in this century is also really important. So thanks to you all.
Thank you for those comments. Next, we have Commissioner Lyons.
Thank you. Thank you all for the presentation. I was wondering if, can you just refresh my memory, are there current residents who are living there, and what's the plan during construction? Will they have to leave? I guess, will they be able to stay in the residence throughout construction? And then if you could just share a little bit about the population you serve. I was hoping to see public comment from maybe some of the residents weighing in on this project too, but just wondering if you can share a little bit about the programs that you offer and help us learn a little bit more about the program.
Sure. Let me talk about your second question there. I'll ask Edgar to answer the details about how we're handling relocation during construction. And this is something we know and do well. This will be the fourth building in a sequence of major reinvestment in our permanent supportive housing And so we've gone through this exercise recently, and we're in the middle of it now. So we'll give you the details. In terms of our approach to the building, as you saw, we provide housing for extremely low income individuals at the Bel Rey. And our approach to all of the affordable housing we do is that we see housing really as a means to an end. Our ultimate objective as an organization is to start by providing the housing, but we know that that's not sufficient to get to our ultimate goal, which is really to provide what the residents need in terms of supportive services to be able to live independently and take charge of their lives. So to us, it starts with the housing, but then gets into a whole variety of services that we try to make as customized as possible to individuals and what their needs are, because not everyone is, each one's story is different. And so that runs the gamut from healthcare services, behavioral health, physical health, but also then gets into programs and activities to create engagement amongst the residents so that there's a sense of community, not only within the property that we're providing, but also to provide residents the confidence and the ability to step forward and be engaged members of their community. And I think that was something that did come through in the communications with the community. Was there were, I recall some comments to the extent of, hey, I know people in the property that are living there now. They're great neighbors. They're in my jogging club, or they come to the business I run. And so it was a real validation to points made earlier that irrespective of your income, right, you can live in dignity, you can be an engaged member of your community, you can live your life in dignity and independence and be a resource to the community in ways that we all can do so. So that's the general thrust. And Edgar, of our service approach. And then Edgar, do you want to talk specifically about relocation during construction?
Yeah, sure. We keep our tenants informed the whole time through, months before start of construction. We utilize a relocation services firm that helps coordinate. We will need to relocate the tenants out of their units for the point of time when we're going to have to work within their units and in the existing building structure. We typically secure units within the same neighborhood. In a recent development that we're under construction now for SRO, we were able to fortunately secure all of the units to be in the same, all of the residents to be in the same building. And we coordinate that move at no expense to them, moving their cable, phone, and all of those things. We get them back in. They'll lose their old furniture. They'll get new furniture as we fully furnish our buildings. This is permanent supportive housing. So they'll move out, and then when they move back in, we help them move back in. They'll be fully furnished. And we're working on a timeline with the GC, so to be determined, but probably a 6 to 8 month window that they might need to be relocated out of the building. But it'll be no expense to them and no change in their payment. And our tenants have a project-based subsidy, and so their rent will always continue to be 30% of their income.
And the priority, commissioners, to move people temporarily, but within the community that they're currently living in. And so far, we've been successful, and it's in the high 90s as to success rate of being able to rehouse temporarily people in the community in which they've been living. And for those where that doesn't work, we've been able to provide them housing at other Mercy properties that we have in the South Loop and elsewhere on the north and south side.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Commissioner Cox.
Yes, no, thank you, Madam Chair. I did want to put a couple of points that I think has helped lead to this successful integration of the housing into the context. One, the expansion of the P Street designation that was talked about was absolutely critical. Thank you, Alderman Wagasback and Alderman Tunney, because that allowed for us to keep active uses on the ground floor and really improve the pedestrian orientation of the building. So that designation and moving that designation was an important precursor to this. As well, I think Landon Baker has done a really wonderful job in understanding the role of the addition relative to the main building and being deferential, while at the same time being very sensitive to interpreting the context without becoming, historicists in their application. So it's just a really wonderful insertion. It feels to me like affordable housing without stigma, affordable housing with dignity. So just thanks as well to Mercy for going the extra mile, to being super attentive to what you are communicating to the residents there, not just the residents who live there, but the residents of the entire community who can look at this project and say that it is genuinely a quality addition to the quality of life of everyone. And that's not always, that attention isn't always given to supportive housing. So I just appreciate everyone's effort to really putting design at the forefront of the question. And I think the results speak volumes, and it speaks for itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Commissioner Brentfield.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief. I just want to commend Landon and Bo Baker for this design and their approach, which I think is appropriately contextual. Too often, designers, architects, we try to over-design with a more contemporary approach that may be out of scale and also out of character. I really appreciate that you working with Mercy Housing were able to restrain yourself and resist that urge of trying to go a more contemporary route. This is very much appropriate for the neighborhood, and just really appreciate the approach you've taken. This is going to be a great addition and a much needed addition to the neighborhood. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next, we have Commissioner Reyes.
Yes, I'm going to be brief also. I just want to commend everybody, Mercy Housing, both Alderman Watersback and Tani, because it is, it makes me feel happy to see that everyone, regardless of anything, has the opportunity to have a decent and safe home. So beautiful design, simple, that blends well, and so I think this is an amazing job. So I know it is hard to get to do, so I truly appreciate it.
Thank you. I don't see any more hands raised. Are there any last comments from Alderman Wagensback or his office?
Yes, Chairman, if I could. And Chairwoman, I sent the recusal form in to NOAA, so I can't take a vote on this, even though
we have it on record. Thank you.
Yeah, I really wish I could, because these are the kind of projects that you want to give an emphatic yes to. So I just ask all of you to give an emphatic yes when you vote for this, because we actually started on this project in 2018 when Mercy first came to us. And in reality, they came to us asking for over 100 units. Which if I recall, we signed off on in concept very quickly, because we felt the need to build out this site to allow for more of this supportive housing. The people in this community, not just within this building, but within the whole community, want to see this project go forward. They've really built a strong community out of the Bel Rey apartments. And it's been one of my favorite places to go and to work with people and watch some of the people who, yes, it would have been nice to have some of them here who over the years have been able to move on, buy their own homes or condos and really build their way up coming out of this community. Alderman Tunney and I, we share the border here, and we've had a great rapport with all the neighbors, a lot of support from the community group there. Yes, they had questions early on, but I think the development group and Mercy handled everything so well at all of the community meetings. And going back to, I think, what Steve was saying, and maybe Jack, between the tax credits and then wanting to get the family sized, or the ability to potentially get family size units in there, that is what reduced that number. But I would love to see projects like this, build out in this area much more than we're seeing now. Like I said, we started in 2018. I think the most frustrating thing for me, or the only negatives on this has been, as Alderman Tunney said, maybe the sign that we can potentially get removed here, but also the length of time that it took. We were looking at the state with the tax credits. We were going back and forth with DPD to really nail down a lot of the other issues. As the commissioner said, the P Street designation, that has been very helpful. And while a lot of these people don't have vehicles, I think removing the vehicle aspect of it allowed us to keep those additional units. So I really want to thank everybody in DPD, not just Mike, going out there and walking the street, that whole section with us. No I know goes out. So for me, it's been a very well thought out project. Everybody threw all their weight behind it to get it moving forward. I just ask for everybody's support of this and support of future developments like this, and want to thank Mercy for being just great people to work with. They not only just checked all the boxes about making sure that people could come back in and come back into those units in the most free-flowing way possible, but thought through about other ways that they could help us in the area as well. So I appreciate all the work they've done. And Chairwoman, that's all I had, but would appreciate everyone's support on it. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, do I have a motion on the proposed residential plan development submitted by Bel-Ray Limited Partnership for the property generally located at 3150 North Racine Avenue, finding that it meets the requirements for approval?
So moved. Navarra.
Motion by Navarra.
Second by Reyes.
Seconded by Reyes. Roll call vote. Commissioner Barclay.
Yes.
Commissioner Biaggi.
Yes.
Commissioner Brentfield.
Yes.
Commissioner Burnett.
Yes.
Commissioner Cox.
Yes.
Commissioner Flores is a yes. Commissioner Garza.
Yes.
Commissioner Lyons.
Yes.
Commissioner Novara.
Yes.
Commissioner Piñero.
Madam Chair, I'm recusing myself from this project.
Thank you. We'll put that on the record.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry,
Yes?
you skipped Moore.
Sorry about that. Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Reyes.
Yes.
Commissioner Searle.
Yes.
Commissioner Tunney.
Yes.
And lastly, I have a recusal for Commissioner Wagensback.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes. Congrats.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I will be recusing myself for this next item, and Vice Chair Brentfield will be taking over.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Chairwoman Flores mentioned, she is recusing herself from the next item on the agenda, which is item D2, a proposed amendment to the institutional plan development number 599 submitted by Humboldt Park Health for the property generally located at 2933 West Division Street. The applicant is proposing to rezone the site from IPD number 599 and RS-3 residential single unit detached house district to a C1-2 neighborhood commercial district, and then to a IPD number 599 as amended. The amendment will expand the planned development boundary to facilitate the development of a 3-story, 45,500 square foot fitness center building with a maximum height of 60 feet. And a minimum number of 529 parking spaces are currently provided in the planned development. The development is located in the 26th Ward. Brian Hacker will provide the context overview, and the applicant will present their proposal. Brian?
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Brumfield, and good morning to all the commissioners. My name is Brian Hacker. I'm a coordinating planner with the Department of Planning and Development, and I'm here to present this item to you today. As Commissioner Brumfield said, this is a proposed amendment to institutional PD number 599 for a new development at 2933 West Division Street in the 26th Ward, Alderman Roberto Maldonado, and the applicant is Humboldt Park Health. The applicant is proposing to expand the boundary of the institutional PED to add about 6,300 square feet to the net total site area. And then, as mentioned, this would rezone the entire planned development, and the property to be included, which is in an RS-3 district, to a C1-2 neighborhood commercial district, and then to PD number 599 as amended. And the purpose of this is to develop a 45,500 square foot, 3-story wellness center for the Humboldt Park Health Hospital that would include a pool, fitness area, community room, and outdoor terrace, among other programming. Obviously, this project is located in the Humboldt Park community area, which is home to about 54,000 residents as of 2020. It's a majority Latino community area, the median household income of roughly $39,000. This slide shows the current site conditions and context. It's located at the southwest corner of Division Street and Richmond Street. So this is located just north of the main campus of Humboldt Park Health Hospital, west of the commercial district of California Avenue, and to the south and to the east of Humboldt Park. Just about a block to the west is the Museum of Puerto Rican Arts and Culture, and it's mostly surrounded by a residential district here. The site area, as outlined there, is 21,929 square feet in area, and it's currently vacant land and a single family home. The zoning map here shows the existing boundary of PD 599. As previously mentioned, this is mainly surrounded by residential districts with a commercial C and B districts along California to the east. The current PD is roughly 12.82 acres in area. It's got a maximum FAR 1.3. There are 2 sub areas, which will be shown on the next exhibit, that have maximum heights of 55 feet and 75 feet respectively. And there's roughly 500 parking spaces in the planned development currently. And as you can see from the aerial image here, the PD is mainly made up of the hospital building, which is located to the east of Richmond, south of Thomas. There's also a existing veterans housing building, which is located between Sacramento and Richmond, and then between Thomas and Cortez, just to the west of the hospital. And the rest of the PD is primarily made up of surface parking. This map here shows the proposed boundary for the PD after the amendment. And this would include slight expansion to the north side of the boundary here that would allow for the development of the wellness center. So you can see the project site outlined there. And you can also see the sub-area map here showing the sub-area A, which is entirely devoted to the veterans housing development. And then the rest of the PD is made up of sub-area B, which includes the hospital building and surface parking. The revisions to the bulk table would be minimal. For the PD, it would slightly increase the maximum FAR from 1.3 to 1.33. There would be no impact on the maximum building height, and there is no additional parking being proposed in this amendment. So for additional context, these are some nice drone images provided by the applicant that show the surrounding area. This is looking southeast towards the loop, looking down Richmond Street at Division. You can see there's a large surface parking lot immediately to the south of the project site. You can see the Humboldt Park Health Hospital building in the background there. This image shows the view looking southwest, so you can see the adjacent residential development and Humboldt Park further to the west. This view is looking to the northwest, so you can see the rear of the site here, which is bordered by a public alley, and you can see Humboldt Park to the north. And then this is a nice view here looking directly to the north, showing how the project site and the proposed development would look out on Humboldt Park. You can see the field house and boathouse in the background there. To provide the planning context for this site, this is part of the Humboldt Park Health Wellness District Master Plan, which was completed in 2018. I believe that's when it was still Norwegian American Hospital. But the goal of this plan is to create a more of a mixed use district that takes advantage of some of the surface parking and vacant land to contemplate infill development. And the site that we're looking at today at 2933 West Division was identified as one of the priority redevelopment sites. With that, I'm going to hand it off now to Rich Clowder of DLA Piper, who will also be joined by JGMA Architects to handle the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. For the record, my name is Rich Clowder from the law firm of DLA Piper. I am pleased to represent this applicant with my partner, Katie Janke Dale. And with me today are the applicant themselves, Mr. Jose Sanchez, who's the president and CEO of Humboldt Park Health, as Brian mentioned, formerly known to many of you as Norwegian American Hospital, along with Christine Raguso, who's the senior director of operations for HPH, and the project architect, Juan Moreno from JGMA. This slide gives you just a glimpse of the extensive community engagement and outreach that this project has occasioned. This is merely the latest phase of the transformation of the hospital campus and the actualization of the vision of the Wellness District Plan that Brian mentioned a moment ago. It's involved literally hundreds of stakeholders and enjoys broad and high levels of support. I'd like to now turn the presentation over to Juan Moreno from JGMA. And Brian, if you could switch to the next slide, we would appreciate it. Juan, take it away, please.
Yes, thank you, Rich. For the record, I'm Juan Moreno, president of JGMA. And commissioners, it's always an honor to present our work to you. And Vice Chair Brentfield, congratulations on your appointment, but also your well-deserved recognition with New City. I want to share with you, just when you look at the site plan, the idea that this project is a beautiful connector with the greater community and a 100-year-old hospital. Next slide. And so elements like the existing parking, it's there, that infrastructure is there. So this is a chance to have a project that, again, as I mentioned, have this connector with division, east and west, but north and south, to have this incredible opportunity to link all the good that's going on in the hospital with the surroundings. Next slide. And then if you look at just the representative scale, as it's been mentioned before, it's predominantly a residential area. There's a building that's 48 feet to the left. This one will be upwards of 60 feet, but fit in nicely contextually. You'll see as we get into the images. Thank you. Next. The project is about bringing wellness to a community that's suffered. It includes programmatic elements like a pool, exercise areas, but what I also think is equally important is there are community-based elements that provide learning and teaching opportunities for wellness for the neighborhood. There are also spaces for the neighborhood in terms of community gathering spaces on the third floor, as you'll see, that allow them an opportunity to use the space, larger spaces that they don't have. And then also you'll see how the outdoor terrace is, again, a great opportunity to link the community with the park, and then equally have a just incredible connection visually with the hospital. Next slide. The concept is this notion of a project that has a broader message, one that links the new brand of Humboldt Park Health, and again, formerly Norwegian American Hospital, but also has a connective tissue with a hospital, with a neighborhood. And then on the next slide, you'll see continue the celebration of the culture of this community. With everything going on with the Paseo Boricua, we want the project to continue that conversation and keep it going westward on Division all the way to the National Museum of Puerto Rican Arts and Culture, and have an entrance that celebrates this entry into wellness. Next slide. The scale, you can see along Division how that the east of the building, or excuse me, the west to the right, its scale intentionally links to the scale of the project or building to its west. And then the next slide, You can see in the north-south direction how it has this beautiful opportunity to connect to the park and then equally connect back to the hospital. Next slide. In the site plan, to the northeast is the entry, to the south is the parking. It's an existing parking lot, so the siting of this really works wonderfully with the overall campus wellness district. Next slide. Again, it's a 3-story building that has an outdoor terrace that is linked contiguously with the programmatic elements inside. Next slide. Starting at the ground floor, this is where you have the entry lobby to the north with the kids club and sports medicine and a pool for the community. The next floor, the second floor, gets into the open fitness areas. And then the third floor gets into those spaces that I described previously that has community rooms, but these lecture rooms that really function as educational spaces for the community. Next slide. I think with everything that we've been through in the last 2 years and the emphasis on wellness, it's important that buildings really think and speak to breathing and wellness and health of users. This project is inspired absolutely by the hospital and the idea that architecture can speak to its use and the idea that we can create healthy buildings. Next slide. You can see it's a building also that has to be experienced in the round. There's no backside to it. It has to connect for so many discussions, whether it's the park, whether it's Division, Paseo Boricua, or a wonderful 100-year-old hospital. All of those elements come together in the architecture. Next slide. The materials are essentially metal and glass. It really becomes this wonderful branding opportunity for all the good that goes on in Humboldt Park Health. Next slide. You can see, just as we go through the renderings, this is the view from the northeast, where entry is clear, procession is understood into the building, and also it's the point where the building's the tallest. And it's intentionally the tallest here because the building really wants to talk about all the good that's going on within Humboldt Park Health. Next slide. And this, you saw just in the previous drone imagery, this notion that the building can have a great connection to the history of the hospital, but also equally to the park, and the idea that the park is an extension of wellness and that the building can, you know, play a protagonist role in that. Next slide. And the view from the human scale on Division, that the building has this kind of great scale with what's around it, but also then starts to have this kind of crescendo effect to really, again, bring attention to all the good that's going on in this wonderful neighborhood. Next slide. And then the view from the park looking south towards the hospital. Interestingly, at the corner to the lower left is an existing bus stop. So it's also using that bus stop as a way of connecting people and users coming to the site, which was of equal importance to the entire team. Next slide. And again, this is really a project that celebrates everything that Humboldt Park Health, Jose Sanchez has been trying to do to really instill a cultural sensitivity into this community, to brand what's been going on in the changes of Humboldt Park Health. And I think of equal importance, a project that when you look at it, it feels like it's breathing and it speaks to health and wellness of human beings, and most importantly for a community that deserves these kind of programs right in their backyard. Next. And then this is a similar image that we had seen earlier. Next slide. The project meets all the sustainable goals, both in number, but even in the way I described. It is sustainability at its finest, and the sensitivity to the environment is not lost on any of the team members. The next slide from the stormwater, we're going to meet the requirements for the stormwater as well. I think with that, I hand it back over to you, Rich and Brian. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan. Excuse me. It's an absolutely beautiful design. It's been a pleasure for all of us to work with you and your team. Humboldt Park Health is well aware of the community in which it conducts operations, as Juan said, and in addition to extensive participation in the visioning of this phase of the Wellness District Plan, HPH is committed to involving minority and women-owned businesses in the construction of this $24 million project. They are aiming here to substantially exceed city participation goals by almost doubling the requirement and establishing a goal of 50% and 10% respectively. There are also numerous employment opportunities and meaningful jobs available for community residents. And as you will hear in a minute, this is the brainchild both of Juan Moreno and of his and our client, Mr. Jose Sanchez. So Mr. Sanchez, if you would say a few words to this commission, we would appreciate it.
Thank you, Rich, for the for the opportunity. I want to thank Commissioner Cox, members of the commission. This was a very long vision for Humboldt Park Health. Mr. Moreno and I have been working on this project for over 5 years. Finally, we are at the point of making this vision a reality in Humboldt Park. I think we did it right from the beginning. We really engaged the community from day one. We have more than 260 participants. We interview individuals in the community. We have workshops. We also allow individuals to respond by postcards in regard to the project. We have significant support from the community. So what you see here basically is a project with significant input from the community to ensure that all of the elements that we heard during the process of due diligence is included in this. This is Mr. Moreno and I really focus on creating a building that will have a different vision and that it will be a design of excellence for this community. Never we have seen anything like this in this community, but it's also focusing on the wellness of Humboldt Park. When we look at the conditions of health, high incidence of diabetes, obesity, we have congestive heart failure, cancers. So all of this, and individuals who have stroke, that they could go there and rehab, get the services that they need. So we are very pleased that we are at the level that we are. I want to thank the commissioner and the members of the Plan Commission for supporting this project and consideration to move forward into the next phase, which will be actually breaking ground and moving this along. The program is, this building is fully funded, so it's a matter of getting full approval from all of you and going through all of the processes that we need to go through. So with that, I want to thank everyone.
Thank you. I'll pass it back to Brian now, but I do want to acknowledge Alderman Maldonado, who has joined us, I know, for this presentation, and I want to acknowledge and appreciate his leadership and support for this project from inception. So thank you, Alderman. I know we'll hear from you in a minute, but let me pass it back over to Brian now to wrap up.
All right, yeah. Thank you to Rich, Juan, and CEO Sanchez for your presentation there. Again, this is Brian Hacker from DPD for the record. So to enter the recommendation here, DPD recommends approving the zoning map amendment to rezone the site from PD 599 and an RS3 residential single unit district to a C1-2 zoning district, and then to PD 599 as amended to facilitate the development of a 3-story, 45,500 square foot wellness center. After reviewing the application materials with respect to the factors addressed in previous slides, DPD recommends approval for the amendment for the following justifications. It encourages unified planning and development, promotes economically beneficial development patterns that are compatible with the character of existing neighborhoods, reinforces desirable urban features found within the surrounding area, creates seamless or gradual transitions in bulk and scale when high density development occurs in or near areas with a lower intensity character. This is all consistent with section 17-8 of the zoning ordinance. It's the recommendation of the Department of Planning and Development that the application for a zoning map amendment for PD 599 be approved and recommended for passage to the City Council Committee on Zoning, Landmarks, and Building Standards. Thank you very much. With that, I will hand it back over to Vice Chair Brentfield.
Brian, thank you. And thank you to the team for this incredible presentation. Before I do turn it over to Alderman Maldonado, do the commissioners have any questions or of the applicant? I think I see Commissioner Lyons.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. It's an exciting project, and I appreciated the public benefits slide. And I was curious with regard to you sort of made mention of the wages, the expectation around wages, and noted. Just curious about the benefits that folks might expect with regard, particularly to health insurance. And the ability to access that for folks who will work here. Could you speak a little bit about that and what folks can expect?
Mr. Sanchez, can you handle that one, please?
Hi, Chris Raguso for the record, Humboldt Park Health. So you can see the breakdown estimated currently of what the expected employees will be for the Wellness Center. And then what we did not include, sorry, Commissioner, is that in fact, it's full benefits for all of these folks.
Does that include the part-time folks as well?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Pinheiro, followed by Commissioner Garza.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to Mr. Vice Chair, and thank you to the team for presenting this. I actually find it to be a great, wonderful mission and a wonderful design. So I'm pretty impressed by the presentation. Question: in terms of, I'm looking at some of the diagrams of the footprint of the project of the PD, and it seems to overlap with some property to the west of the current of the existing, I think, open site, and even maybe an alley is taken. Can you help me understand what the process is like? It seems like there's going to be demolition. What are those buildings adjacent to it, and what's going on around the development area?
Rich, you want me to take that one?
Please, Juan, thank you.
Sure. Commissioner Pinheiro, great eye. If you look first, the building to the right that has red on it, that is a little two-story house that the hospital owns, and it's not in the best shape. So that one will be demoed. The project will not cross over to the alley in any way. The alley stays as is. And certainly, as you can see where the cars are parked to the left, that's the parking lot for us. But the only demolition that will occur is that white and red house to the right that is currently owned and not occupied.
And is there something, Mr. Moreno, is there something behind that house? Or that may be just part of the property itself. I saw like a small building behind it too. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the little garage that's on that property as well that served that house formerly.
Okay, understood. Yeah. Thank you.
Commissioner Garza, followed by Commissioner Burnett.
Thank you. I don't have a question. I just want to lend my enthusiastic support to the project. I happen to live just 3 blocks from the site, and I think it's a wonderful and beautiful design. I know the great work that the Humboldt Park Health Institution gives to the community. It's been a community that was hard hit by the pandemic, and Mr. Sanchez and his team have always been community responsive and proud of the work they're doing, and I'm proud that this resource will be in the community for so many people that can really take advantage of it. And why wouldn't they deserve such a great resource to the community? So I just wanted to offer that into the record. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Burnett.
Yeah, thank you. I would be remiss if I did not commend this project. Appreciate Mr. Sanchez. He's been working hard in this community for a long time. Appreciate the vision, the acquiring property. You know, even though he knows that the property value is going up in the area, people are trying to get all this property. He still is trying to expand the health area over in this community, and one that's very affordable to many people, not just Latinos, but people from all nationalities. I know my sister even was at that hospital. So we appreciate everything that they do over here for the community and the creation of the jobs for people in the neighborhood. I think this will bring some good jobs to the neighborhood. A lot of neighborhood folks work here, and also on the construction jobs also. So my congratulations to you, my man. We're glad that we stole you from New York and you decided to stay here with us here in Chicago. And also you have my my good friend, Chris Raguso, working over there, my former intern many years ago. So congratulations to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Burnett. Just to build on your comment, I too am glad that you are still here with us in Chicago, and this is just great to see this this effort moving forward. Are there any more comments from? Oh, I'm sorry. I believe I see Commissioner Reyes, and then followed by Commissioner Cox.
Yeah, thank you. Very briefly, beautiful building, amazing to see how you truly are opening this physical structure to embrace the community, the park, the history. I'm not an architect, but humbly, I truly appreciate how beautiful this building is. So it's a beautiful asset for this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Cox.
Yes, I just want to acknowledge the work of Humboldt Park Health, particularly CEO Sanchez. I remember walking this area with the alderman and trying to figure out where the best place for this wellness center was. And I have to say, I think your decision to pull it out and have it be a signature on the park, it was, you know, a stroke of genius. Because the hospital is very internalized. So sometimes it's a little hard to find it, but your decision to use those outlots that face the park as your front door is a fantastic kind of generosity that your hospital is giving. I also will say this is the first pool community wellness center that I have seen during my time here. So it joins a family of family-oriented services that are happening within Invest Southwest. You know, we have a number of them, but this is the first one that has a pool. So I can imagine what a benefit this will be for residents of the area. I also just want to, again, acknowledge JGMA that continues to inspire this community about what architecture can do. You just think about their work on Grace Manor in Ogden, about their work in Pioneros in Humboldt Park, and now this wellness center. They continue to raise the bar on what we expect from architecture when it appears in Black and Brown communities. So again, that is a compliment to the hospital for partnering with such an innovative team. I hope, you know, again, I hope we'll, I was really intrigued by the bus stop in front of the wellness center. Wouldn't it be wonderful to have a signature bus stop by the same design team that did the wellness center to really make the connection for people who sit at that bus stop and see it as one with the building environment. So that's a plug. I don't know if that's a plug to CDOT or to CTA, but we'll see what we can work on that. But again, my compliments to Humboldt Park Health for your effort to kind of really produce an inspiring vision for this community.
Absolutely. And if there are no more comments from the commissioners, I believe Alderman Maldonado is here to make a statement, or is a letter on file?
Well, thank you so very much, Mr. Chairman, for acknowledging me. Yes, I would like to make a statement in full support of this project. I know that this project spearheaded pre-pandemic. That was when I first had my first meetings with Mr. Jose Sanchez, and he has been tireless pushing this project forward. And I'm so grateful that it was embraced by Commissioner Cox. And I'm so glad that we are at this point, hopefully with your soon to cast vote in support of this development. One of the beauties about this project is going to be in the heart of Puerto Rico town, right on Division Street, across the street from this beautiful second largest park in the city of Chicago, Humboldt Park, in the epicenter of our Puerto Rican community and Latino community on the near northwest side. And this beautiful development of 35,000 square feet with an indoor swimming pool, which I'm sure my daughter will be using very, very frequently, and also an indoor track with weight rooms, and also wellness education. I mean, we have the highest incidence in our Latino community when it comes to hypertension, diabetes, and to have this wellness center in the middle of our community with wellness education opportunities for our community to really enhance and improve their health. It is a great service that we have been talking for so many years, and now it's going to become a reality to really have the services on a permanent basis at this site. So with that, I want to again commend the leadership of my dear friend, New York-Rican, Jose Sanchez, adopted by New York from Puerto Rico. Jose Sanchez, I was born in New York, but I was raised in Puerto Rico, the other way around for him than him. But it's a little story. He used to be the CEO of the hospital, Lincoln Hospital in New York, and that was the hospital in which I was born. And so soon after he became a Chicagoan, we became very, very close friends because of that. So again, thank you, and I hope that the commission will vote the right way in favor of this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Maurice, Commissioner Cox, I'm not sure if your hand is still up or if you.
Yes, I mean, I did want to underscore something that I think Alderman Maldonado remind me of, that this project, Wellness Center, joins two other significant capital investments that all face onto Humboldt Park that this commission has already approved. There's a 64-unit affordable housing project on the corner of Division in North California by the Hispanic Housing Development Corporation. And then the housing department recently awarded tax credits to a 34-unit housing development project by Hispanic Housing Corporation on North California. So this park is receiving an enormous investment that I think speaks, quite frankly, to the work that the hospital has done, but also to the alderman's effort to really assure affordable housing for families in this area. So I just think we should not lose sight of the trio of investment that this wellness center represents.
Thank you, Commissioner Cox. I do have a comment. I just do want to commend Mr. Sanchez and Humboldt Park Health. Your commitment and resilience over the past 5 years to move this forward is truly been an inspiration for all of us. And I just wanted to go on the record for noting that. Also look forward to seeing this project move forward and the implementation of yet another signature piece of architecture from Juan Marino and his JGMA team. This really speaks in a much different way of how to expand and respect the culture and establish, or if you will, kind of create a stronger cultural presence in Humboldt Park. And also the idea, of course, of health and wellness in the community is much needed. It's just great to see this project taking the next step forward. And of course, with Humboldt Park Health still remaining in the neighborhood, again, to be commended, your commitment to the neighborhood and your presence still here. With that, do the commissioners have any additional questions for staff or the applicant or the alderman? If not, do I have a motion on a proposed amendment to institutional plan development number 599 submitted by Humboldt Park Health for the property generally located at 2933 West Division Street, finding that it meets the requirements for your approval?
So move, Piñeiro.
Garza, second.
Seconded by Garza, Commissioner Garza. With that, I will do a roll call. Commissioner Barclay.
Yes. Like 1 o'clock.
Commissioner Biaggi.
Yes.
Commissioner Burnett. Commissioner Burnett. Commissioner Brumfield is a yes.
Yes from Burnett.
So noted. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Cox.
Yes.
Commissioner Escanero. Commissioner Flores has recused herself. Commissioner Garza.
Yes.
Commissioner Lightfoot. Commissioner Lyons,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy. Commissioner Navarra.
Yes.
Commissioner Osterman. Commissioner Pinheiro.
Yes.
Commissioner Reyes.
Yes.
Commissioner Searle.
Yes.
Commissioner Sposada. Commissioner Tunney.
Yes.
Commissioner Villegas. And Commissioner Wagasback.
Yes.
The motion passes. Congratulations to the team. Again, this is just fantastic to see this project moving forward, and we look forward to its implementation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And with that, I would
Thank
like to turn this back over to Chairwoman Flores.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Now we go on to item number 3. The next item on the agenda is D3, a proposed residential business plan development submitted by 1353 Partners LLC for the property generally located at 1353 West Fulton Street. The applicant is proposing to rezone the site from M2-3 to DX-7 and then to a residential business plan development. The applicant proposes to construct a 28-story, 314-foot tall building with 305 residential units, ground floor commercial space, and 115 accessory vehicular parking spaces. A 4.5 FAR bonus will be taken, and the overall FAR of the plan development will be 11.5. And this is located in the 27th Ward. Joshua Sun will provide the context overview, and the applicant will present their proposal.
Hi, good morning. I just want to confirm that you can see my screen.
We can, thank you.
Fantastic. For the record, my name is Josh Sun with the Department of Planning and Development. This proposed development is generally located, as mentioned, at 1353 West Fulton Street in the near West Side community area within the 27th Ward. The applicant, 1353 Partners LLC, and their development team appear here today for the purposes of establishing a planned development at the subject site. The request is being submitted as a mandatory plan development application pursuant to the provisions of the Chicago zoning ordinance, Title 17 of the Municipal Code of Chicago, due to the fact that the plan development review and approval is required for any development that meets or exceeds height thresholds or seeks to utilize neighborhood opportunity fund bonus. The subject site is located in the central planning region in the near West Side community area, which had a population of just under 68,000 people. This reflects a 23.7% increase in population change between 2010 and 2020. The site is located in close proximity to the Ashland L stop located here that serves the Pink and Green line and connects it also to the bus routes of the 9 and the X9, the Ashland bus, which runs north and south. This aerial depicts the site in relation to its current surroundings. Note its close proximity to Ogden on the west, the pink and green lines to the south, along with larger previously industrial buildings whose sites are currently being redeveloped or rehabbed for less industrial intensive uses, such as office space, commercial, retail, and or residential. For example, these photos show existing conditions adjacent to the site. And as mentioned before, the silver building is an office building with ground floor commercial, a shared office use space, I believe. And you can see other existing condition photos on the right side. The site is surrounded by a mix of office uses, commercial uses, and residual industrial parcels that are slowly being redeveloped on the east side of Ogden. The west side of Ogden currently falls within a PMD4, or a planned manufacturing district, which is known as the Kinsey Corridor Overlay District, which promotes compatible office, industrial, and commercial uses. It should also be noted this property is located along a designated P Street or pedestrian street along West Fulton Street, which is a designation intending to promote transit, economic vitality, and pedestrian safety and comfort. And with that, I will hand over the presentation to Katie Jenke-Dale, who is representing the applicant team. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Flores and members of the commission. For the record, my name is Katie Jenke-Dale from the law firm of DLA Piper, and along with my colleague Rich Clowder, we represent the applicant for this matter. I'm joined today by Jeff Shapak, the applicant, Adam Simmel from SOM, the project architect, and Luea Buna from KLOA, the project traffic engineer. This project is subject to the West Loop design guidelines that were adopted in September 2017 and is within the Fulton Market Innovation District, which was last updated in February 2021. The team has worked closely with DPD to ensure the plan complies with these guidelines and plan, which SOM will detail later in the presentation. Next slide. As does every project in the 27th ward, this project went through a robust community process, including meetings with Wilco, WCA, and NOWL, and a community-wide meeting last October. We also held a number of working sessions with DPD, which resulted in a number of design changes that are listed on this slide and depicted later in the presentation. I'll now turn the presentation over to Adam from SOM, who will go through the project details. Adam?
Good morning to the Plan Commission. For the record, I'm Adam Simmel with SOM, and thank you for hearing our presentation this morning. We're going to start with the building in context. You can see here the building 1353 West Fulton is in the center of the page. And what we've done here is we're hovering over Ogden, facing east towards the city, towards the loop. And you can see all of the proposed and improved plan developments, which are not yet constructed, that demonstrate the density that's coming through Fulton Market from east to west. And one data point I'll mention is our height. Our top of parapet is 314 feet, which is really right around the general new datum height of the neighborhood that we expect to see developed over the next few years. It's certainly not the tallest. It's right in the middle of these new wave of buildings that are coming east to west through Fulton Market. Next slide, please. Another view of that same diagram from the southwest now, facing east and northeast. You can see how it fits in, again, hovering over Ogden from the south and west facing east. Next slide. A little bit closer to the building, we're starting to see how the tower sits in context with the buildings around it. I'll just orient everybody bottom to top through the building. There's a residential entry along Ada on the south side, retail and including open cafe at the ground floor, 2 stories of parking. At the top of the podium, which is our level 4, there's a rooftop amenity, which I'll show you more detail about. Levels 5 through 28 or through 27, excuse me, are residential, and we'll show you those floor plans. And then atop at level 28 is the rooftop amenity. Next slide, please. Coming a little bit closer to the building, you can see how the podium is broken up into 2 architectural expressions, and we did that to break up the scale and really address the pedestrian at a kind of human scale by breaking down this long podium facade into 2 structures made of 2 different materials. And I'll talk a little bit more about that detail as we go forward. Next slide, please. Coming in closer, we're now on Fulton Street facing the north facade. We're facing south, and what we're looking at may not look like a parking podium, and that's the intention. At the ground floor is retail, thought of as a cafe. Existing street trees are retained. There's 2 floors of parking tucked in behind the open air facade. And above that is the amenity floor I mentioned earlier on the 4th floor, with openings that start to connect people using the amenity floor down to the street. And the overall look we're going for is something maybe a bit more like a gallery or a small museum feel, recognizing that we don't yet know who the tenants are going to be on the ground floor, but we're going for a look that through materiality and scale and form starts to connect back to those uses and highlighting the uses on the 4th floor. And really just, you'd look at this, you'd never know a parking facade was hidden within. Next slide, please. We're on Ada Street on the north half, looking at the north half of the development on Ada facing to the west. And so this is the other side that's exposed to the street. If you notice, the detailing on the north side was different. We've created a brick detail that removes every other brick and creates porosity on the north side. Here on the east side, we're using a detail that actually creates depth and texture by pushing some of the bricks out. And because we're facing east, we're going to have the morning sun raking across this facade, and you'll see the play of light and shadow across this facade throughout the day. Notice at the 4th floor, the apparent depth of the facade, and that's also echoing at the base. There's an expressed depth to this facade that I'll show you a detail of later. We're trying to create an expression of solidity, beautiful materiality, texture, light and shadow, openness at the base. You see all the glass and depth that you have at the entry, but overall, a kind of beautiful object. That's our goal. Now we've shifted the view just to the south. So we're looking at the east elevation of the project. We're on Ada facing west, and you're looking at the podium and how the tower comes into that. So on this portion of the building, the south portion of the building on Ada, we're using a different materiality. It's an expression of the gridded tower facade coming down and translated to a facade that's appropriate for the retail of the ground floor and the 2 floors of parking that are hidden behind a screen wall. We do need to keep our parking open air. And so what you see here in terms of a material is a kind of nested layering of grids of metallic texture from the finest grain of the screen that screens the parking so you don't see in, to the textures of the grids that you see nested within. And that's all done in a dark gray painted metal. Then at the base, you're looking at a retail facade, a residential entry below and to the left of that canopy that wraps around the retail. We'll show you the plan behind that in a minute. The result, the project that we're showing you today has changed quite a bit through the process of engagement with the DPD, And I have to say, we really appreciate all the time and attention. I say this on behalf of Jeff too. I know how much we've all remarked that the building has changed significantly over the course of multiple meetings with DPD. And we appreciate all the input we've had, and we think the building's a better building for it. So you can see on the left where we started with a 3-story parking podium with amenities atop. In metal, a facade texture that was meant to evoke the industrial heritage of the building, but do a modern kind of take and play on it. And a single materiality between the tower and the podium. And now we've moved in another direction. We've taken the podium, we've lowered its scale from 3 down to 2 parking floors. We've articulated the podium not as a single element with a high degree of horizontality, but as 2 elements, one connected to the tower and one that's more about the corner of Ada and Fulton. We've introduced the material, the masonry material, the dark gray brick that is going to create more texture, enliven the facade, work with light, play with light and shadow. And then we've also given the building a little bit of a diet. We've reduced the overall footprint of the tower from 100 by 102 to 108 by 108. Reverse that. We've reduced it from 108 by 108 to 100 by 102. Please excuse the typo on the slide. On the ground floor, you can see that the ground floor is primarily retail facing all of the Fulton Street side, the vast majority of the Ada Street side, a residential lobby tucked in south of that. And then our back of house is mostly facing the alleys. Or entirely facing the alleys. We were lucky to have 2 alleys wrapping around this project. And so you can see on the left, our 2 loading bays are accessed on the west side, and our vehicle ramp is accessed from the south side. And so there's a nice separation of uses there that's going to be quite functional. Next slide, please. Now we've moved all the way to the rooftop just to show you the way the 28th floor works. So this is a rooftop plan. The tower footprint, which is surrounded by the dark and black line on the left side, and the core elements are mechanical that we have up there. And then on the right side and around the core, you see the pool and the amenity deck on level 28. Next slide, please. And now I'm back down to level 2, which is parking. Quite functional, quite straightforward. ADA spots located near the core. Next slide, please. When we have level 3, and now we're up to the residential amenity level, where you see at level 4, most of the plan is amenity that's going to access the outdoor deck at level 4, and some residential amenity in a separate structure, a small pavilion that we're designing there. You do see 6 residential units on this floor, and then as we go to the next slide, you'll see the typical plan on level 5, which has 13 units per floor, which is essentially repeated all the way up level 5 through level 27. And the detail of what's at level 28, you see the pool facing east, the amenities hugging the core, and then MEP in a penthouse that's open to above. We're looking at the elevations. On the left side, you see the east elevation. So I showed you a detail of these elements at the podium earlier. Now you see how it all hangs together with the tower coming down to a podium that's changed to accommodate the uses behind it, but generally in keeping. So a sense of a tower and a podium coming down to the ground. And then on the north side of the east elevation, you see the brick pavilion, let's call it. From the north, you see that brick pavilion, and you notice the difference in the texture of the brick. It's coming out on the east, it's coming in on the north. I'll also point out as we go to the next set of elevations, which are the west and the south, please notice the play of balconies, which move around. They're intended to be playful, dynamic, even appear to be a little bit random. Of course, they're carefully planned to work with the units, but we also thought of them in the context around. So on the west facade, which you see on the left, you'll notice there aren't a lot of balconies until we get near the top. That's when the views break. That's where the balconies start to make sense. On the south, the balconies start to accumulate towards the top, and that's how playing that game around the east and the west. We think that the dynamism of the balconies is something that adds interest and character to the building. It's a little bit of a surprise. Sections tell the story from top to bottom of what I described earlier. Next slide. And here are the details I was referring to earlier. This is the corner of Fulton and Ada. You can see how the brick texture changes from the north to the east. On the north, we have the openings, which allow for porosity and actually enhance the airflow and the natural ventilation of the parking behind, create one kind of texture. And on the east side, where we're going to have light in the morning and through half the day, the bricks project out, which creates a play of light and shadow across the facade. You'll also notice, Josh, before you advance, You'll also notice the depth of the openings on level 4. It's a little bit of an architectural trick that we're playing to give the impression of depth to this facade from the street. And these deep openings create special spaces on the 4th floor, which are going to be tied into the amenities. So they actually become useful from the 4th floor, and they create that expression of a deeper and more solid podium. Exactly the opposite of what you'd expect to have parking behind some of it. Next slide, please. And here's the south east corner as we wrap from Ada Street to the alley. The residential entry is here, retail, and you can see how the podium facade in metal is very similar to the podium, the facade expression in the tower. Here's a detail of that where you can start to see the balconies with their intermittent extension of the slab to create that dynamism on the facade. A detail of that curtain wall on the left. Next slide. Traffic study, Lou is here to answer any detailed questions, but I will say the findings of the traffic study were that the streets can accommodate the additional load. And the streetscape plan, which has been coordinated and approved by CDOT. And then we have a few slides describing the ways in which we've all really worked hard to design a building that's in keeping with the West Loop design guidelines. So I'll just mention a few of those principles here, and they're tagged into the facade. The base is stepped to be compatible with the height and adjacent scale of lower buildings. The base is the first floor, the ground floor is lined with active uses, providing street level spaces within buildings that are designed to accommodate active uses. That's the open space that you have at the corner. Located both holding the street frontage, I'm going to use plain English here, holding the street frontage, keeping in scale, design excellence. So we've tried to put forward details that are in keeping with the spirit of Fulton Market, maybe taking it to the next level in terms of interest and craft and resolution. Appropriately scaled, loading docks off the alley, parking off the alley. And I think these are repeats and we're just going around the facade. Yeah. And then as we look at the south portion and the corner, again, translated into different materials, some of the same concepts, design concepts, urban design concepts that we respond to in the West Loop design guidelines about scale, breaking down that scale, proportionality, the relationships of tall buildings and their podiums, stepping back, transparency at the ground floor, and some of the functional elements hidden around the alley. Next slide, please. Here are materials. I wish we were in person to show you these and we could pass them around and look and feel. We have a kind of range of dark grays that provide different kinds of texture, but a certain amount of harmony and echoing of each other as you look at the building. So overall, it is this dark gray building, but you see dark gray metal, painted aluminum on the facade of the tower and part of the podium. You see the perforated metal coming in at the parking podium. You see the dark gray brick on the corner, which is really the most special and prominent part of the building. We have vision glass for the tower. We have clear vision glass for the retail. Those are going to be, those are matched to be in harmony, not too green. And then we have a painted metal mesh, which is also at the parking podium to create that, that porosity which we need for the ventilation. So we've mapped out a plan to work within the city's sustainable development policy guidelines, which of course we are huge fans of and applaud. Our roadmap to achieving that compliance is going to include a Green Globes certification. We're going for 2 globes, including EV charging stations within the parking, EV readiness, CTA display, and waste diversion for a total of 100 points. And then we're in full compliance on stormwater management. This is coordinated and approved. And Katie, I believe you'll take this slide.
Thanks, Adam. Wrap up very briefly. The project is subject to the 2021 ARO, and applicants opted to provide the required 20% or 61 units on site. Those units will be at a weighted average of 60% AMI, with 1/3 of those at or below 50% AMI and 1/6 at or below 40%. Also consistent with other projects north of Lake in the FMID, the applicant has already been working with DOH to seek to achieve the additional city-assisted 10% on site. And like I said, already initiated that process. Next slide, please. The project cost is approximately $135 million and will generate 275 construction jobs, 15 permanent and 15 permanent jobs. The applicant has already selected Clayco as its general contractor, who has a proven track record of meeting and exceeding M&WB goals, as well as local hiring goals. We'll also generate over $2.8 million in neighborhood opportunity funds. With that, I'd like to thank DPD and the community for their time and input on this project, especially Alderman Burnett. And we appreciate the Commission's time and consideration. Our entire team's available for questions. With that, I will turn it back over to Josh. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. The Department of Planning and Development has reviewed the materials submitted by the applicant, and we have concluded that the proposed plan development would be appropriate for the following reasons. It is in compliance with the following plan development standards and guidelines. The proposed development is in general conformance with both the Fulton Market Innovation District Plan and the West Loop Design Guidelines, both approved and adopted by the Chicago Plan Commission. Per 17-8-0102, it promotes unified planning and development. Per 17-8-0103, it promotes economically beneficial development patterns that are compatible with the character of the existing neighborhood. Per 17-8-0904-A, 1 through 4, it promotes a level of amenities appropriate to the nature and scale of the project. Per 17-8-0905-B2, it is located abutting the sidewalk with doors, windows, and active uses adjacent to it. Per 17-8-0906-A1, it demonstrates urban design as evidenced by reinforcing desirable urban features found within the surrounding area, such as siding patterns, massing arrangements, and streetscape characteristics. Please refer to my staff report for further details regarding this project and the plans identified here today. Based on the foregoing, it is the recommendation of the zoning administrator for the Department of Planning and Development that this application to establish a plan development be approved and forwarded to the City Council Committee on Zoning, Landmarks, and Building Standards as such. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh, for the presentation and to the full team. I'm not seeing any hands raised. I'm starting to see them now. I just wanted to make a couple comments, architectural comments. I think the project overall is very successful. I love seeing that image of the progression of the design, especially at the podium, breaking up the podium. I think that was a very successful move. Also, the movement on the balconies, I think it's also a successful move, and especially reducing the footprint of the tower. I do think that the brick pavilion or the parking structure is still not quite there. I think the texture on the brick and the openness starts to do that, but I don't think it's enough. I think having 2 levels of the concealed parking still reads as warehouse-like. Not sure if there was any more exploration about making the openings even bigger or introducing just openness into those parking levels, or even maybe making the brick lighter or any other things that were explored. I'm not sure if the architectural team wants to answer that.
We can't hear you, Adam.
Adam Semmel from SOM. Thanks for your question, Ms. Flores. We did explore a range of options through the design process here, and actually showed a few of those options that we thought were viable to DPD and had great back and forth dialogue around it. We even explored other materials like concrete, poured in place concrete, and the idea of a materiality like that. We looked at color options, light bricks and dark bricks. We wanted to stay within the kind of palette of light and dark, as opposed to anything that would go in the direction of a red brick or a brownish red brick. But we did explore a range of options and ultimately came back to an opinion by our client, as well as I think some consensus through these design discussions, which were robust, believe me, that the look of the building in dark brick with these deep shadows, the sense of depth, the light and shadow, the texture that's created through these details would be an expression that would be appropriate. And we're trying to achieve something that has a bit of poetry to it. It's not a project that, it has a kind of humble quietness to it. These textures, you know, they run coast to coast on the two sides. So, you know, the idea is that that texture is something that, again, plays with light and shadow, is unexpected, takes the idea of some of the craft and detail you do see in the neighborhood. You see some of these details around the neighborhood and elsewhere, but takes them to another level through the integration of their use at this scale. So that was our thinking. I hope that answers your question.
Can I add to it? For the record, Jeff Shapak Partners, on behalf of 1353 Partners LLC. Furthermore, the brick was actually a collaboration we were working on with the Astor Gates. So he has a specific brick we're trying to use for this project for the corner building. This is a neighborhood of, while I know he does some incredible work in other neighborhoods in the city of Chicago, on the south side and west side of Chicago. He is someone who is in this neighborhood often and has become both a collaborator with us as well as a friend to our company and to me personally. And we're trying very much to use a brick that he has created for this project.
Thank you for that. Curious to see what other commissioners have to say. Commissioner Reyes, followed by Commissioner Novara.
Yeah, could you please put again the slide that shows the ARO commitment, because I was not able to see the numbers. Okay, I truly appreciate the fact that you have units at 40% AMI. Thank you.
Commissioner Novara.
Thank you. My comments actually along the same line as Commissioner Reyes. I just wanted to point out that this project is taking advantage of the new rules under the new ARO. And so that's where we, because we allow for the weighted average being at 60%, we do see a much broader range of incomes being served here. So at the top level at 80% AMI down to 40% of the area median income. And that's a really important goal for us. Based on what I said on a previous project, the vast majority of our low-income renters are at much lower incomes than what the ARO was traditionally serving previously. So this is, we're really pleased to see this as well. And also that it does provide 9 2-bedrooms is also great. So thanks to the team.
Thank you for that information. Commissioner Searle.
Just on the affordable units, I think it's also great that 61 affordable units will be provided on site. So that's another good feature here. I wanted to comment also on the brick facade and its connection to the other part of the building. I just feel like I do think the ground floor is well done and will, you know, create a great street amenity. But I think the connection to the rest of the building is a little bit weak. And it would almost be interesting if we could just take some of that brick and carry it over, even if it's just a small amount, to the rest of the facade, just to make you realize, hey, this is one building. The other thing that concerns me, well, 2 things. One is we only have 2 EV units, EV ready, EV charging stations, and 20% readiness. And I think the city's really got to look at almost 100% readiness, if not a whole lot more than 20% anyway. And I think the other thing that's concerning here is that all facades are the same on the residential tower. And, you know, we're looking at a north-south versus east-west, and the random balconies are nice, but are they really creating enough shade on the east and west sides to, you know, be a sustainable, comfortable place to live in. So I think these are things that we ought to look at even in our guidelines, that, you know, an office building in many ways gets away with this almost because, you know, it's not used day and night, but a residential building, you know, lives there 24 hours most of the time, and especially these days. And we ought to be considering, you know, shading devices on east and west, especially. So those would be things I would, you know, want to see further developed. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Searle. Commissioner Cox?
Yes, and thank you to the team. One, for your willingness to work with DPD to really try to refine the design. I particularly appreciate the setback of the taller building. When it was first presented, it wasn't deferential to the building next door, but I think it's now been located in a way that there's light and air for the adjacent building. I also appreciate the evolution of the podium, which, you know, as it was originally presented, was one monolithic podium with a kind of green wall that I think we were all afraid would be brown most of the year. And so your willingness to throw that aside and really think about how you could make something that looks almost like a new institution. In fact, when we first saw the brick building, we thought we were looking at a contemporary art museum, not a podium. And so I do think that the expression of these as two different things was very important. I would agree with Chairwoman Flores. You know, boy, we wish those openings at the amenity level could be even bigger, which, you know, I know adds complication because the only way to make them bigger is to go and encroach on the parking level. But I still think the point stands. You know, the size of the openings on the ground level are really quite handsome, and you almost wish you could have that kind of imprint above as well. I think I love the brick relief, and I just am crossing my fingers that it will be enough relief to be seen at all times. So I was wondering if there's a lighting strategy, something that could accentuate the relief without having to change necessarily the detail. Because I do think that these kind of textural reliefs are a part of the older qualities in Fulton Market, and very few projects have found a way to interpret that sense of detail without mimicking historically what happened. So I'm looking forward to this, and again, just I think a really wonderful expression of something that, you know, we have to deal with these podiums. It's just nice to see someone bringing something to the table that pushes the envelope a little. And again, if you can, depending on that ground floor use, if it is, arts related, I think everyone will think that this is the new MCA of Fulton Market. So again, kudos for the work. I really appreciate the innovation here.
Thank you, Commissioner Cox. Would Alderman Burnett like to make any comments?
Sure, thank you. First of all, I like to commend the Department of Planning and Housing for working with the developer on this project. I'd like to thank the community for evaluating this project. As the councilor said, they went before 3 community organizations, and we had a community meeting, and actually they had approved the former building before, and then there were some design suggestions made by the department, and the developer adhered to them. And And then the community approved the second set of designs, which is even better. So I commend the developer for his patience and doing those things. I like the fact of the affordable housing. I like the 40%, 60%, the different levels of it. You know, just as the previous projects before us, there's not a lot of affordable housing at the lower percentage AMIs. So this is definitely needed. The unique thing about this building is close to the L station, it's close to the park. You know, it has a lot of great amenities. Appreciate the fact that this is going to bring, you know, hundreds of jobs on a construction site and jobs inside the building. I look forward to the developers, contractors having a joint venture with a minority contractor. This developer has always worked well with the minority contractors and allowing people from the community to work on their developments. I just appreciate this development. Look forward to seeing it come to fruition. I support this, my community support it. We ask for this body support. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Burnett. Do the commissioners have any additional questions of the staff or the applicant or the alderman? Not seeing any hands. Do I have a motion on the proposed residential business plan development submitted by 1353 Partners LLC for the property generally located at 1353 West Fulton Street, finding that it meets the requirements for approval?
So moved, Biaggi.
Seconded by
Motion by
Commissioner Brentfield.
Biaggi, second by Commissioner Brentfield. Thank you. I will now go on to roll call vote. Commissioner Barclay? Not here anymore. Commissioner Biaggi?
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Brentfield?
Yes.
And I have a recusal on record for Commissioner Burnett, Alderman Burnett. Commissioner Cox? Commissioner Flores is a yes. Commissioner Garza? Not here
Yes,
anymore.
yes,
Oh,
sorry about that,
okay.
Madam Chair. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
we got that on the record. That's a
Thank you.
yes. Thank you. Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Moore? Not here anymore.
Sorry, Chairwoman, she had to leave. She just sent us an email. She had to step away.
Oh, okay, thank you. Commissioner Novada?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Piñero?
Yes.
Commissioner Reyes?
Yes.
Commissioner Searle?
Yes.
Commissioner Tunney?
Yes.
And Commissioner Wagensback?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item D4. A proposed amendment to business plan development number 1407 submitted by 360 North Green LLC for the property generally located at 360 North Green Street. The applicant proposes to amend plan development number 1407 to permit the construction of a 25-story commercial building containing with a maximum height of 425 feet and 495 square feet of commercial space, commercial office space, 90 accessory parking spaces, 2 loading berths, 38,000 square feet of public open space on site, and accessory and incidental uses. The proposed plan development has a base FAR of 5.0, and the proposal seeks to utilize a 3.1 and NOF bonus FAR, bringing the overall FAR of the plan development to 8.1. And this item is in Ward 27 with Alderman Burnett. Max Lyon will provide the context overview for the applicant, and they will present their proposal.
All right, good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Max Lyon and I'm the lead planner for this proposal with the Department of Planning and Development. As mentioned, this proposal is generally located at 360 North Green Street in the Fulton Market District. The applicant, 360 North Green LLC, is here today to propose an amendment to the existing business plan development number 1407 to accommodate a taller commercial office building and a larger public open space than was previously approved. The subject site is located in the near west side community area, just west of the I-90 Kennedy Expressway. With a community population of over 67,000, its top 3 industries of employment are professional, healthcare, and administration, with almost half of the area's workforce living outside of Chicago. Historically, the near west side and Fulton Market District in particular have been home to meatpacking and manufacturing warehouses, and has since grown into a vibrant hub of restaurants, retail, and commercial office space. Murals and large art installations are also prevalent in the area. In September of 2017, CPC approved the West Loop Design Guidelines. One of its primary goals is to build upon previous planning efforts to ensure that the West Loop continues to build on the central area characteristics of an employment, transportation, cultural, and residential center for the city, while also maintaining the urban character and scale. Additionally, the Fulton Market Innovation District Plan of 2014 and its 2021 update call for the preservation of existing jobs while accommodating private sector investments that reinforce the area's expanding role as an innovation-driven employment center. The FMID update also prioritizes the protection and enhancement of historical and cultural assets, the promotion of food, arts, and culture, and the prioritization of pedestrian safety and experience. 360 North Green is in the vicinity of many other proposed and approved developments in the Fulton Market District. This aerial massing shows the proposal in context with other new developments, with approved projects in orange and proposed projects in yellow. Looking south, this view shows the proposed and approved developments near 360 North Green that share similar scale and massing, helping to illustrate the future look of the district. Within the zoning context of the surrounding areas, 360 North Green is primarily adjacent to light industry and commercial districts, with downtown service and planned development districts making up most of the difference. This land use map further illustrates the current extent of program around the proposal, primarily including commercial uses. Numbers in the hatching signify the quantity of floors for each surrounding structure as well. And from the public realm, these images help establish the current conditions of the project site from its 4 intercardinal corners. The original business proposed development number 1407 was approved in March of 2018, and the amendment application was filed in October of 2021. Based on the feedback from both DPD and the community, several design changes were implemented, including the height was reduced from the proposed 425 feet to 399 feet. Materials were changed at the crown, parking podium, and exposed structural elements. And the open space was increased and refined to include an arts walk, seating areas, and places of respite. Now I will turn over the presentation to the developer's attorney, Katie Jenke Dale, who will further explain the details of this proposal.
Thank you, Max. Again, for the record, my name is Katie Jenke Dale from the law firm of DLA Piper, along with my colleague, Rich Clouder. We represent the applicant for this matter. I'm joined today by representatives from Sterling Bay, the applicant, Gensler, the project architect, and Louis Buna from KLOA, the project traffic engineer. Hopefully he's now been promoted. I think I'm turning it over to Jim. I know he was having some tech problems. Jim, are you able to?
I am good.
Perfect. All right, Jim will present the project. Go ahead, Jim.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yep, we're on Max's screen.
Fantastic. So thank you for having us today. My name is Jim Prendergast. I'm with Gensler, representing the 360 North Green project. So The slide as you see today is the proposed 25-story office building location on the previously approved PDP site from which we're looking to amend to a new design. Next slide. The original design shown on the left targeted a tech user profile. This type of tenant generally needs large open floor plates, high bay spaces, and a lot of lateral space with large open spaces. So I'm going to echo myself on my.
You're fine, Jim.
So, okay, yeah, it's a thing in my ear. Sorry. What came to pass for Sterling Bay was they began to realize that a target tenant for this site really was not so much tech tenants, but professional service tenants. These tenants don't need these really large horizontal floor plates. They need, by comparison, narrower, slimmer floor plate areas. What we propose then is to take the same building area and actually restack it into a narrower but taller structure. We placed the structure on the north end of the site, which gave us the ability to create a green space all on the south edge of the site. Next page. This is a updated overall landscape plan. Our site has this unique kind of pigtail at the end of the site going off to the west. It's already an improved green space, but we're expanding that into our new green space that grows all the way over to Green Street and hugs the south side by the railroad tracks. This is getting a byproduct of pushing the building to the northern boundary of the site. Next page. Key elements here are that notice that we are keeping the parking garage entrance off of Kinsey and our loading entrance off Peoria, as was previously indicated in the priorly approved plan development. The site includes a lobby on the north side of the building, which focuses Kinsey in green, and a retail / potential food and beverage location on the southern side with outdoor dining areas that are blended into the overall landscape plan on the south. Here's an extension drawing of that tail going out to the west that goes all the way over to Morgan. Here's an aerial view of our green space. We're kind of calling the passage that goes. So we're looking west here from Green Street. So we have built up a vegetative berm along the edge of the railroad tracks on the south, opening up a beautiful kind of wandering path all the way going from Green Street all the way over to Morgan, beyond the Guinness building and developments beyond. This happens a very porous, open entryway from Green, as you see in this street level rendering. We're looking at using very natural indigenous prairie style plantings. They'll have a year-round impact and impression, including the idea of using kind of an ivy approach to the base of our building as you walk through the space. Yes. Nighttime was a key element that came up through the community meetings. There was questions about how will the space feel and how will people feel safe in the space through the entire course of the day. So this is an environment where we're showing how our parking podium we're lighting as a backdrop feature, and then gives an overall view of the space as you see it from Green Street and access into the whole green space. This is a view looking back towards Green Street, and you can see how the lighting is used to lift the parking podium off the ground and helps accentuate what we call our Super V columns that lift the building off of the ground, bringing a very light touch of the building to the ground plan. Next slide. This is a kind of series of overview images about inspirational thinking about the landscape plan for the passage on the south side of our site. So here's one more detail on our lobby plan. As I mentioned previously, we have our public building office lobby facing Kinsey in green, and then a tenant for retail facing south and east. Our loading is on the left-hand side of the plan, where you see the word loading dock. And then we have our ramp between column lines A and B coming off of Kinsey. Again, as was previously indicated on the earlier PD. Our parking level, as we ramp up the space, where we tuck in some back of house mechanical spaces, and then our parking spaces. On the fourth floor, sitting on top of our parking podium, we have a stacked two-story tenant amenity space, but is surrounded by a naturally landscaped kind of meadow effect on this overall podium base. The south side of our amenity space is a two-story lounge space looking out over the green space and Fulton Park below to the south. And the north side on this floor, we have fitness center. Next slide. The typical floor plates are really kind of the generator of the entire floor plate approach. This addresses this notion of that differentiating ourselves from a tech tenant profile to a professional service firm profile. In this case, we have clear column-free planning spans on the building, and we've shifted these two blocks of office space on other sides, I should say, to give ourselves maximum view corridors to the north and the south, and maximize light penetration inside the office floors. This type of tenant doesn't need deep interior planning space, so we simply have not provided that as part of our design. And that creates this new shape to the overall floor plate geometry. Next slide. And there's the high-rise floors, and then our mechanical floors at the top. What this allows us to do is create a staggered top of the building where we have our mechanical functions on the north side of the building, and gives us a tenant amenity, anchor tenant amenity space facing south. Next, roof plan. So some views around the project itself. Here we're standing at the corner of Green on the left-hand side and Kinsey on the right. And you see us looking south and west. You see us looking at the kind of a covered entry into the office lobby entry. And then you can see the greenery turning around the left, turning into our green space. You can see how our Super V sloped columns come down to the ground and help lift the office block up off the ground. Next. Overall West Loop design guideline compliance includes elements such as the building orientation designed to create an active street wall. Towered portion of the building provides an upper level setback, respecting distinct scale of the lower scale buildings in some of the immediate area. A grove gate parking levels was built to the property line congruent with existing street wall conditions. Loading access and other facilities do not interfere with public right of way. The building corner of Green and Kinsey is set back to provide this plaza that I just mentioned. And the building is designed with thinner structures to allow public accessible spaces. And this can be used for outdoor cafes or leisure space for the building occupants. Ground floor retail continues around the public realm. A view looking north along Green Street. Next. A view looking essentially from above Halsted, looking south and west. Here you can see then how the building and Super V's lift the office portion up off the ground, allows for our kind of simple shaped parking podium to float above those. A view looking south and east. And this is our view looking west. One of the key elements of the design and central to this tenant attraction to the property is this notion of outdoor space on every floor. In the centers between the two office blocks, you'll see balconies that act as bridges between different sides of the office floor. Next slide. Similar feature on the west side. And then a view looking northeast. So you can see the Hancock Tower in the distance and the 333 Green building on the right. And to see the proportion of the building facing south where we have that anchor tenant amenity terrace at the top of the building. Next. Elevations, highlighting those bridge elements I just mentioned earlier. This is the Green Street elevation. This is the north elevation, a view of the very, very prominent viewed from the expressway as you enter into the city. This is the south facade. And finally, the west facade. Details of the actual materiality of the building include this section of the portion of the building dealing with our parking podium, which is will be clad in curtain wall system with back painted glass with express mullion caps that are aligned with the facade of the building so that there's a contextual compositional connection between the podium and the tower above, while still allowing it to be a fairly anonymous, lightly scaled object floating above the floor floor plan. Next. Here you see the amenity floor that separates podium from office, where sloped columns are expressed on the outside of the building with a fairly standard curtain wall system beyond. The actual tower itself is made up of a vision glass curtain wall, 10-foot ceilings, and where we have 5-inch vertical blades, caps every 15 feet to give a general overall vertical expression to the building. Our crown of the building identifies this kind of step profile that I mentioned earlier, where the north office block rises taller than the south, which encloses our mechanical systems. The elevator core building the building is expressed as an object, then clad in back-painted glass panels. And then you see there the anchor tenant's amenity deck on the south end side. The net area of the project is around just shy of 60,000 square feet. Our right of way is 34,700 square feet and a gross area of 96,000. One thing that's important to bring out is that the difference between these two applications is that we have added by, I think, nearly 30% the amount of green space to the overall site development. Next one. These are some details connected to code compliance or to elements within the requirements for the building. Main Entry Plaza complies with sections 1708, 0905, providing safe and safe walkways. And we have clear vision of the majority of the upgrade level for retail at the North and Green Street side. Design complies with the context of the West Loop and the pedestrian level, creating a visually dynamic experience around all sides of the building. No two sides of the building are identical at the pedestrian experience.
Sir, if you could speak up more clearly for me as you continue.
I'm sorry. I will do so. The green space has been pushed back again from the edge of the Metro track side to create as much of an open and inviting space as possible. And the building with its bitter profiles allows for a more dramatic but not as bulky expression in the overall context of the neighborhood. In short, our parking study shows that the building is in compliance with the overall demands of the area and will not overstress the ability for the project to support the movement of the tenants in space without overburdening the neighborhood. Currently, the building is targeting LEED Silver compliance, which is kind of a Sterling Bay commitment for all of its projects. And we're highly confident we'll meet this number, if not more as we go forward. But LEED Silver is where we're standing right now. Katie?
Thanks, Jim. The project cost is approximately $288 million, and it will generate 473 construction jobs and just under 2,500 permanent jobs. The applicant is committed to working with Alderman Burnett on meeting the city's MNWB and local hiring goals. We'll also generate over $4.4 million in neighborhood opportunity fund contributions and $750,000 in industrial conversion fees. And failed to mention at the beginning, we also have representatives from site design, our landscape architect, but with that, we have representatives from Sterling Bay and the rest of the project team available for any questions. And thank you for your time and consideration. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Max.
Thank you, Katie. Again, Max Lyon with DPD. The Department of Planning and Development has reviewed this proposal and has determined that it is appropriate for the reasons listed on this slide. Please refer to my staff report for further details on this project and the plans identified here today. Based on the foregoing, it is recommended to the zoning administrator of the Department of Planning and Development be approved and that this proposal be approved and forwarded to the Committee on Zoning, Landmarks, and Building Standards as such. Thank you.
Thank you to the team for the presentation. Commissioner Searle.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the landscape plan, which I think is, I assume this is open to the public. Anyone who's in that neighborhood is able to use that. Okay, great. I mean, this is the area that I've been describing through various projects as no man's land because, you know, the railroad crossing is so hectic and dangerous to me. And there's really very little space for pedestrians to move around, and especially this area because you're coming from it's Milwaukee, I think, is the high road, and going west down, sloping down on Kinsey to Green Street, and it's kind of a, you know, strange area. And as we can build from here to the east, I hope that we could continue this idea of a green space walking path that would be much more pedestrian friendly to the neighborhood. So kudos on that part of this project. And I think the building is going to be a better building for services and other kinds of uses rather than what you were thinking before. And, you know, the open space in the building is also great. I mean, we know now we need that outdoor air as we work in our offices. So I think this is a nice plan for this area.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any more hands raised. Would Alderman Burnett like to make a comment?
Sure. Thank you very much. Just one question before I make my comments. Do you guys have an end user? I mean, you switch from large floor plates for tech to this. Do you have an end user? I know you guys usually get end users.
In this case, we do.
You do?
We do.
Okay. Is it public knowledge yet?
At this point, generally speaking, yes. We're in the late stages of negotiations with the management consulting firm, Boston Consulting Group.
Okay, fantastic. So it's going to be, do that mean it's going to be people walking around with accents or no? I'm just kidding. Okay.
That, Alderman.
All right, fantastic. So I think this is fantastic. I think this is great. This is another another building that's going to bring many working people to our community. Those folks are moved from out of town. Maybe they'll buy some of the real estate that's being built in the area. I commend Sterling Bay on always giving. This is not the first time that they have given up some area for green space and open space to the community. They did another one along Kinsey Street, which hasn't been finished yet, but that's coming. So this is just another addition to what they've already contributed to the neighborhood. Also, we enjoy the fact that they doing a big effort on working with the minority community. Matter of fact, they have people on staff to help with that now, and they're working with minority contractors, a lot of minority workers. So I appreciate it. I'm very satisfied with all of the things that they're doing. And not only do they're going to give a substantial amount of money to the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, for which I failed to mention with the last development, and that money going to 80% of that money, or an 80 or 90% of that money, 80% of that money is going to go to the south and the west side to help with developments over there with the Invest Southwest, which is always a big win. But this organization, I thank them for spearheading a lot of things over here in this community and continuing to invest in the neighborhood. And I look forward to seeing what the next project is. They've worked with myself. They work with the local community organization. The community organization approved their first project. They approved this rendition of the West Loopgate, West Central, and now. And we had a community meeting and we didn't have any objections. So with that, I ask this body, I support it, our community support it. We ask this body if they will support it also. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Burnett. Commissioner Cox?
Yes, I too want to just commend Sterling Bay for the amount of publicly accessible park space that they are committing to at their building footprint. And you know, I'm sure this body has seen a trend by the planning department to really encourage developers to begin to incorporate public space on their private development so that we can start to build a network of open space amenities for an area that sorely needs it. And so I think adding to Commissioner Searle's point, we hope that this begins the principle of now greening space as it goes further east along the metro tracks. And so I think I'm certainly gonna work with our staff to look at what the implications are of this as a linear greenway system as it moves further east and west. And again, we have the shed building, the one with all of the beautiful murals that will be activated. And I think you begin to see a really dynamic public space and activated space emerge. So it may seem like we're just, creating one space, but we may be actually creating a whole new open space structure. And so I just commend Sterling Bay for getting it started and for bringing in a landscape architect early into the process. We've been trying to encourage developers to bring in our allied design professionals from day one so that we can begin to have these quality public spaces that are being made. I think it's a beautiful project, and I think you've worked really well. Gensler, once again, is producing just a high quality and innovative office space model. And so congratulations to the team.
Thank you. Commissioner Lyons.
Hi, thanks so much for the presentation. I was curious, I know Sterling Bay is a partner with Hire 360. I was curious if you were also going to be working with Hire 360 on this project, and if you could talk a little bit about what that might look like.
Kiana?
Good afternoon, Kiana Barrett, Director of Diversity and Strategic Development for Sterling Bay. Yes, you are correct. We do have a very robust partnership with Hire 360 where they are helping us recruit and train local residents to work on construction projects and enter into the trade unions. So we certainly will be extending that partnership along with some of the other local workforce development consultants in the area that have rich relationships within the community to make sure that we're able to tap into the talent in the immediate area and create opportunities, not only for our projects, but to train them to participate on some of the other striking developments across the city.
Great to hear. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Do the commissioners have any additional questions for the staff, the applicant or the alderman? Not seeing any more hands go up. Do I have a motion of the proposed amendment to business plan development number 1407 submitted by 360 North Green LLC for the property generally located at 360 North Green Street, finding that it meets the requirements for approval?
Commissioner Wagasback will move.
Motion by
Seconded by
Wagasback,
Commissioner Searle.
seconded by Commissioner Searle. Roll call vote. Commissioner Barclay. Not sure if he's still here. Commissioner Biaggi.
Yes.
Thank you. And I do have a recusal for Commissioner Brentfield and also another one for Alderman Burnett. Commissioner Cox.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Flores is a yes. Commissioner Garza. I believe he stepped out. Commissioner Lyons.
Yes.
Thank you. Is Commissioner Moore still here? Don't think so. Okay. Commissioner Murphy. Okay. Commissioner Novara.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Piñero.
Yes.
Commissioner Reyes,
Yes.
Commissioner Searle,
Yes.
and I have a proxy vote for Commissioner Tunney. And finally, Commissioner Wagensbach.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think we're on to the last item on the agenda. And this is just an informational presentation, correct? No, I'm missing something. It's
No,
item
this will
5.
require a vote.
Got it. Item number 5, D5, a proposal to adopt the neighborhood design guidelines. The neighborhood design guidelines provide specific recommendations to enhance the planning, review, and impact of development along the city's commercial corridors. As a complement to other city design resources and regulations, these urban design guidelines are adaptable to the unique context of individual neighborhoods, corridors, and blocks. The draft guidelines are intended to be used for all public and private projects located along Chicago's commercial corridors. Projects that require the city's review and oversight should substantially correspond to their parameters, especially planned developments, lakefront protection ordinance projects, and projects that receive city grants, funding, or other incentives. Gerardo Garcia and Catherine Hurd will provide the context overview and present the proposed guidelines. I believe Gerardo will start.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Gerardo Garcia, Deputy Commissioner for the Bureau of Plan and Design at DPD. Going to start with a little bit of walking the Commission through the framework from which the neighborhood design guidelines were created. And they're really part of an ongoing effort by the Department of Planning and Development to adopt design excellence as an ethos, which started in late 2019. And at that point, the department set out to devise a strategy for design excellence and convened a working group of built environment professionals from Chicago to help define design excellence, which we all know can sometimes be perceived as a subjective qualifier. If we can go to the next slide, please. And we really began that conversation by establishing a set of design excellence principles from which to codify our design guidelines. And we started by asking a very basic question, which you see here on the screen, and that's how do we engender a culture that values design excellence in everyday life? Meaning, how do we make it so that the conversations that we have here at the Plan Commission and through the other work that the department does is engaging the city as a whole through our work. And so if we can go to the next slide, we'll walk through really our set of 10 design excellence principles. And the first one tying back to this notion of inclusivity as a tenet of equitable development. And so prioritizing and finding ways to include communities in design processes to foster a more equitable development. Next slide. Our second principle, which again is in the realm of equity, is really about celebrating both our neighborhoods across the city, both through built environment design excellence and the cultural expression that exists throughout them. And so the principle of, go ahead, please. Next slide. And our third principle is about leveraging the economic benefits of good design, not just in the sense of job creation and readiness that a lot of these projects provide in our neighborhoods, but also by the innovation that design excellence drives. Next slide. And along the realm of innovation, our fourth principle is really about encouraging diverse design approaches in order to inspire that innovation and achieve design excellence. So you see here 4 different ways of achieving a project on a site. And so these are the conversations that the department currently strives to have with applicants, with the development community, in order to achieve development that fosters a quality built environment for its communities. Next slide, please. And we also want to honor Chicago's legacy of architectural innovation by promoting contemporary design. So the project that you see here on the screen is the Chinatown Branch Library, and really accepting that, you know, we have a lot of great historical architecture throughout the city, and finding ways to complement that in more contemporary expressions. Next slide, please. And really focusing on the city's purview around the public realm and the pedestrian experience. And so approaching the work that the department does through this priority of ensuring that the built environment is one that is a pleasing one and welcoming one for pedestrians. Next slide, please. And again, an acknowledgement of the places and the communities of our city, and really a direction to our team to, as we do the work, immerse ourselves in these places, in these people, and in the different cultures of the city. And obviously, building upon the city's, our own city's legacy of sustainability by embracing a principle for a healthier, more resilient, and beautiful city. And again, beyond engaging, really finding ways to communicate design excellence to the public in the work that we do and to our various communities across the city. And lastly, supporting the design excellence efforts of our city departments and sister agencies, and finding ways to encourage design excellence through the work that we do, and making ourselves available as resources for our sister agencies. And so that is an overview of our design excellence principles. I'm going to hand the presentation over to my colleague, Catherine Hurd, who will walk the commission through the neighborhood design guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine Hurd, for the record, from the Department of Planning and Development. So as Gerardo had mentioned, the neighborhood design guidelines came out of the larger design excellence conversation. And so in 2020, we had produced a draft of the neighborhood design guidelines that were publicly released as a draft. So we sort of used that as a pilot test since then. We've been applying them and sharing them with our partners, designers and developers throughout our city. So we are right now in the process of attempting to get this adopted through Plan Commission. And this is one of several different documents that are going to be developed about guidelines for different types of development in the city. This is for a very specific context, but we want to be able to provide guidance for multiple contexts beyond the neighborhood commercial corridors. So the purpose for this set of guidelines is this flexible set of urban design guidelines specifically for developments along Chicago's neighborhood commercial corridors. And it's intended for developers and designers. And we would like to be able to adopt these so that we can more easily apply them as we review projects that fall under that set of criteria. So these, again, are projects, development projects on neighborhood commercial corridors. They're a resource for every project on a neighborhood commercial corridor in Chicago, but we will use them as criteria for review for anything that triggers our design review process. So that includes plan developments, it includes Invest Southwest projects, other projects that require city assistance. We want to be very clear, though, that they don't impose specific architectural styles. They do not apply to open space and streetscape projects, just development projects, and they do not override existing guidelines and ordinances. So we are seeing this as a living document. We want to be able to iterate this document to be more useful and easy to use and clear. So we are going to continue to solicit feedback and further refine these. And then as we have a new version, as we're getting closer to a new version, we'll come back to Plan Commission to adopt that. So the guidelines themselves are made up of 6 categories, and each category has a set of topics, and I will walk through those. The way that it's structured is, as you see at the top there, the category is at the top, and then there's a topic under that, in this case, orientation and access. And then underneath that topic, there will be several different guidelines. And for the guidelines, we're also providing photo examples to illustrate how those have been used in projects in Chicago. So the first category is sustainability. So we define that as design that has positive long-term environmental, socio-cultural, and human health impacts. And this covers the topics of site selection, adaptability, design expression, and best practices, which primarily links back to our Chicago Sustainable Development Policy and how these two work together. The second category is program, targeted uses that complement a development's surrounding context. And the topics are use mix, so making sure that the program types within a project support the neighborhood as a whole. And also for the context, making sure that we are finding out not just what uses would go together, but also what uses the community needs and how those are arranged on the site. Third category is site design. So that's building orientation, layout, open space, parking, and service. The topics under that are orientation and access. So we're trying to optimize accessibility, views, light, and circulation. Open space, making sure that there is ample open space as a part of the development. Parking and service to mitigate the impacts of those things while allowing the site to be functional for the development. Fourth category is the public realm. And this is improvements within and near the public right-of-way adjacent to the development site. So it's about the interface with the public realm and not specifically for projects in the public realm. Those would not be considered development projects on a neighborhood commercial corridor. The guideline topics are the public right-of-way, so that interface and how do we complement and enhance that, landscape, as well as accessibility and safety. And importantly, when we talk about that, we are intending that for all ages, abilities, and identities. The fifth category is massing, which is the bulk, height, and form of a development. And the topics are height, access to light and air, and the street wall. And finally, the last category is facade, which is the architectural expression of a building's exterior, including entrances and windows. The guideline topics are windows and doors, materials, ground floor, and signage and security. So the plan for implementation for this set of guidelines is that we are sharing these with designers and developers as well as our community partners. Anyone that's interested in design would like a set of guidelines to be able to help them have a conversation around design within their communities. And then from DPD's perspective, we will use the guidelines to evaluate projects that trigger the design review process and that are development proposals along neighborhood commercial corridors all over the city. We'll continue to gather feedback and refine the document, and then we will return to the Plan Commission to adopt new versions when there is a substantial update ready to go. And with that, we will take any questions you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you both for the presentation. I see that Commissioner Wagensback wants to make a comment.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I was just, I was reading through this, when it came up on the agenda, and I was curious, what your work is around working with neighborhood organizations or community organizations that do have zoning committees and do provide a lot of input on, for instance, in the 32nd Ward, we send all of our requests out from developers to community organizations and ask for input. So I was wondering how you were going about that with, is that the community partners that you were talking about?
Yes, I can speak to this, Commissioner. Yeah, and so as it's common practice, we do engage with those neighborhood organizations as part of the project review process. I think what the goal of these guidelines are as it relates to that relationship with the department is to provide a tool for them and to kind of establish a common language from which to review projects. Obviously, most of these community organizations are very capable and have folks that have experience in built environment sitting on their committees. But this is really about, again, establishing that common language, providing a resource to the development community, and really helping everyone have a similar expectation of what to expect from projects. So this is really a review tool, if you will.
If I could add to that question, very, very good question, Alderman. And I think what you're perhaps underscoring is the opportunity we have to present these guidelines to the various advisory boards that many aldermen have. And I would, again, time permitting, I would hope that DPD, upon request, could make the circuit with the different aldermen and the wards and their committees, because a lot of what we're trying to do is get to a lot of the by right development. Sometimes, when we have, when the city is adding incentives, or if it's a PD, we have a way to engage, but a lot of work happens in the city and it's by right. And a lot of those developers and designers have no guidelines really that are collective, a set of collective aspirations. And so this document is meant for them. So I'd be really interested if you think we have an opportunity to reach folks who could use these that we haven't been thinking of.
Yeah, that's a good point, Commissioner. So I've been using a similar set of guidelines since I became alderman, and we collected that data, that information, and that built those guidelines from the community organizations who are developers, builders, architects, social workers, everybody within that space. And we've always used our guidelines like you're setting up here for almost every project that we could put together. And even if it was as of right, we try to infuse a little bit of that to say, hey, look, you could do a better job on this, even though you have as of right capabilities here. And I think that's always been our big struggle, was to see stuff go up that kind of has no relationship to the community. I'll just call it bland or otherwise, that's sort of picked out of a file drawer and used. We've seen that far too often for many years. So I just wanted to say I really appreciate seeing these guidelines. I actually sent it out to our neighborhood groups to solicit feedback from them to DPD through this process. So that's why I'm encouraged to see it. I just wanted to know how we were going to kind of go about getting that solicitation of feedback and how strong that feedback would be taken. But I think you're already kind of way beyond what the expectations were. So I just wanted to say I appreciate that.
Commissioner Searle?
I was just going to say that I think this does provide many groups, neighborhood groups and others with a language that they may not know themselves, right? So that they might use these terminologies and these ideas to hopefully improve some of these projects that aren't PDs and are not necessarily in other areas of the city's purview. I think the one word I would really like to see added, because we're talking about design excellence, is to also include design innovation. Because we want to move forward in all of these ideas and things that we do. So if we could just insert somewhere maybe in the beginning of this document that it's design excellence and innovation, because that's what Chicago is known for. The great innovative projects and buildings that we've built over the last, hundreds of years. So let's just keep that going, right? That's what we want to do. So that would be my one comment to add to the project, to the document.
Yeah, very good point.
Yeah, duly noted. And I will say, it's so funny. We've been so focused on just trying to establish a benchmark of what
Right.
is excellence and aspiration, that the next step in that is innovation. So hopefully your point, we embrace it. And I think it speaks to what we're trying to do. While we have guidelines for Fulton Market and we have guidelines for the Loop, when we go into the neighborhoods, what are we aspiring to do? And can we go beyond excellence and reach innovation? I think we can, given Chicago's history.
I think so too.
Commissioner Piñeiro?
Yeah, I think this is, thank you. This is a phenomenal initiative to really develop these guidelines. My point is around communication. Firstly, I would say it's important because all of these are projects that, number one, have to harmonize with their communities, also create economic development. There's a lot of time spent and invested in really the development of these projects, and think over communicating what we see, what the city sees as a definition of design excellence is fundamental. It's a very subjective topic, and to the extent people understand what we're striving for is critical, so that we can be efficient in the process and the private sector can develop and kind of point in the right direction from the get-go. The only other point that I would mention about communication is, I think Catherine mentioned that this is meant to be a living and evolving document. And I think we need to be thoughtful about the dissemination of information, not only at the outset, which sometimes we do a great job at the beginning, communicating it broadly and so forth. But I think as the document evolves and continues to be modified and so forth, we should be thoughtful at the outset about how we're going to get out to the community to tell them how this is evolving, how the view of the city is evolving, so that we can keep people well informed about how the guidelines are working and the purpose. Thank you.
Excellent point.
Commissioner Burnett?
Yeah, thank you very much. So coincidentally, I was on a meeting last night with one of my community organizations about a development over on Chestnut and Orleans. And after the meeting, later on in the meeting, they were talking about the design guideline plans that they had that was put in place with them years ago with LISC. LISC had helped a lot of people throughout the city of Chicago to put together some design guidelines across the city. So that and a lot of these community organizations live by their design guidelines, right? So I would say, so that we don't bump heads or make the aldermen bump heads, right? Because you all bureaucrats up there, y'all do y'all thing, but we got to face people all the time. So you all don't make us bump heads with the community. You need to make sure you communicate with those folks. I would even go and talk to LISC, because now what LISC is trying to do literally with our community right now is redesign or update the what they call it. It's not a design guideline, but it's something kind of plan, some community plans that they have across the city, so that we can all be on the same page. Because every I mean, I have several communities in my ward, and every one of them, like in Old Town like brick, right? I mean, everybody likes something different to sort of be in context with, you know, some of the other properties that's in their area. So we need to make sure we touch the pulse of the community so that, you know, we don't bump heads with anything. And then my other question is when would this trigger? How does this trigger? Do this trigger when there's a zoning change? Do this trigger when somebody tried to get a building permit? You know, how does somebody adhering to a design guideline trigger? When would it trigger?
Catherine, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So as mentioned, these are a resource for everyone. And just to also clarify that the design guidelines that we're talking about, the neighborhood design guidelines, are flexible. So they are designed to play nicely with other design guidelines and have other more specific community design guidelines lay on top of those, have this be the very kind of foundational set of guidelines so that there is the opportunity to get more specific for individual communities. But for our review, we would use the guidelines in our design review process. So anything that comes through our design review process that is a development project on a neighborhood commercial corridor, we will use these guidelines to evaluate them.
So it is, it's a complement and it is advisory. So often when we're reviewing projects in neighborhoods, the developers say, well, what am I supposed to look at? I mean, you're saying we should have multiple setbacks and massing, but there's nothing that they can look at to say what we mean. So this is really an effort to help them as they shape their development projects. I would appreciate what I'm hearing from the alderman's level is that those boards that have a lot of economic activity over time, community groups and advisory groups to the alderman have set up frameworks that are very place specific. It would be really, really helpful for us to know of a few of those, and we'll enter into dialogue with them, take a look at what their guidelines are. And I suspect that you will find that they will be complementary, because what we've been trying to do is think more broadly about what are just good practices in neighborhood development. So I think it's a compliment, but I think both Alderman Wagesback and yourself are speaking, from wards that have a lot of economic activity. So people are very watchful about design, and we should make sure that they understand that this resource is there and available to them as well. So I don't have to take particular groups names now, but we will come back to you, and perhaps you can direct us to a few folks in your ward that could benefit from us introducing this to them.
And then so this won't be a process that would delay development.
No, absolutely not. I think what we find more often than not is the developers ask us, can you show us what you want? And up until before this guideline, we had nothing to show them. Now we actually can show them, and that is at the service of expediting and accelerating the design review process. So by all means, I mean, I can't tell you how often the developers would say, can you simply show us what you mean? And just as in the Fulton market, we can point to the guidelines and everyone knows exactly what they're supposed to do. It only accelerates the approval process.
So in these things that you're speaking of don't come before the Plan Commission for approval. So what do you mean when you say the approval process? If they don't come to the Plan Commission, how do they get approved, and where do they get approved at?
I can speak to that, Alderman. They do. So projects that trigger our design review are plan development, lakefront protections, for example, and projects that receive city assistance. Of those three, the first two certainly come to Plan Commission. The other depend. A PD could receive city assistance, or a lakefront protection project could receive city assistance. So a good chunk of projects that these would apply to would come before the Plan Commission. But again, to be clear, these are 4 projects really in our neighborhood commercial corridors.
All right. Okay, I just don't want planning trying to run the whole city. You know what I'm saying? I mean, aldermen still have input in the community, have input in things that goes on in the neighborhood.
And absolutely, as you certainly are benefit from, the planning department has set up monthly briefings with upon request with all aldermen. So we have more contact now with the projects that are coming through the multiple wards than we've ever had before in planning. So those touch points are absolutely critical. We obviously your team monthly, but we afford that same frequency of planning contact for all 50 aldermen, and it is making a big difference. So we see it very much as a partnership, and we have these touch points, so we're able to come to issues again and again and again. So that's really the spirit of it. It's to the service of helping all. Many who don't have advisory boards set up to help them guide development in their communities.
Okay.
Thank you. So I don't see any more hands raised. So with that, Commissioner Searle, yes.
I just wanted to add one real quick thing. Over the years, we've talked about, design guidelines and various, organizations and how they do it. And I think the thing to kind of remember in all of this is that guidelines are not proscriptive. They are ways to think about how to look at the problem and what you need to kind of solve for this situation you're in. And what we don't want in design guidelines, which I think this particular set of guidelines totally successfully does, we don't want you to tell us that we have to use brick. Some of the neighborhoods might, but this set of guidelines is about, here are the things that need to be thought about and concerned with. So I think the way this is done is very good, because this is what you should be thinking about and trying to solve these problems. Would you agree with me, Commissioner Cox?
No, that was very well. I mean, just very well said. They often, it's probably more appropriate to say, they often come to us and say, what should we be thinking about as we develop our project? And now we have a framework to share with them. But, neighborhoods have such specific qualities and everything is place-based. So we, and in our principles, we actually advance this notion that we want projects that are place-based and move away from this ubiquitous notion that something in Old Town should be the same as something in Brownsville, should be the same as something in Pullman. Actually, that's not true. We actually believe that there's a critical reading of place, and these guidelines will help those who are doing projects to discover that.
Thank you. Okay, so I think that concludes that presentation.
Is the Planning Commission going to take a formal vote on this?
I think so.
Commissioner Floor or Chairman Flores is about to get to that section.
Yeah. So do I have a motion on the adoption of the neighborhood design guidelines, finding that it meets the requirements for approval?
Point of information. Point of information.
Commissioner Burnett, is that?
Yeah, that's me. Thank you. So So when we vote on this, do it goes straight to council or it goes to zoning?
Alderman, it's Noah. So this would be a plan that's adopted by the Plan Commission to, as Commissioner Searle mentioned, to help guide decisions in the future, design-related decisions. It would not be a ordinance adopted by a Committee on Zoning nor by City Council. It would be a policy plan adopted by the department through Plan Commission that we would use to guide development in the future.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And did I have a motion?
Chairwoman, I'll make a motion. This is all Commissioner Wagisback.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do I have a
I'll second it.
second?
Commissioner Searle.
Commissioner Searle? Thank you. And I'll do a roll vote. I believe Commissioner Barclay has stepped out. Yeah. Commissioner Biaggi? Okay. Commissioner Brentfield?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Burnett?
Yes.
Commissioner Cox?
Yes.
Commissioner Flores is a yes. Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Novara? Not here. Commissioner Pinheiro?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Reyes?
Yes.
Commissioner Searle?
Yes.
And I believe Commissioner Tunney has stepped out. And Commissioner Wagensbach.
Yes.
Thank you. I believe that's enough votes, correct? Thank you. Motion passes. And that concludes our meeting for today. Yes, and I do have to do a roll call on this too, right, to adjourn?
Before you do, Chairwoman Flores and Vice Chair Brumfeld, I just want to compliment you on a wonderfully facilitated Plan Commission meeting. And we're actually getting out of here before 2 p.m., which is definitely appreciated. But it's just, I say this on behalf of all the commissioners, it's just wonderful to have you step into these leadership positions. And I feel that our city is going to be, our city is in very good hands. So thank you again for your leadership, and Vice Chair Brumfeld for your leadership as well.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for the patience. I'm still working on it, so we'll get better. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cox.
One quick moment. We got to make the motion and we got to take the vote.
Oh, right. Okay. Formally. Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion
So
to
moved by
adjourn.
Commissioner Searle.
Okay. Motion by Wigginsbach and seconded by Commissioner Searle. Commissioner Biaggi, I think it's not here. Commissioner Brentfield.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Burnett.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Cox.
Yes.
Commissioner Flores, yes. Commissioner Lyons.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Pinheiro.
Yes.
Commissioner Reyes.
Yes.
Commissioner Searle.
Yes.
And Commissioner Wagensbach.
Yes.
Thank you.
1:47.
Well done,
Chairwoman,
Mr. Flores.
I always read the time at the end for the court reporter. please.
Okay.
So 1:47.
This
Yeah.
month's meeting of the Chicago Plan Commission is now adjourned at 1:47. Thank you.
Great to see
Good
you
job,
all.
Claudia. Great job.
Thank you. Bye.